And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, yeah.
Attention and roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern Time. And, of course, it's Wednesday with the Finest Unfiltered. It's hump day in the middle of the week when the content with New York City just keeps on going. It's the gift that keeps on giving. We're a couple of minutes late. We have a couple of technical issues to iron out, but we're all good to go and ready to do the show. So if anyone's paying attention, the Dominican Day Parade took place in the Bronx. Festivities, for a lot of people, it was a great time. But the NYPD seized 16 guns doing intrusive police work, 16 guns on the streets in the vicinity of the Dominican Day Parade, or actually at the parade. So you have to ask yourself, wow. I mean, first of all, I say hands down, awesome police work. I have no issues with the rank and file. That's a great job, getting 16 guns off the street, doing intrusive police work, engaging people. But here's the bigger picture. The bigger picture is this. If 16 guns were recovered, how many guns weren't recovered? How many illegal firearms were at that parade or in the vicinity of it, in and around the parade at the time of the event? How many actual illegal firearms were not apprehended? It's not the ones that you apprehend that scare me. It's the ones that you don't apprehend, that are in the hands of predators and violent perpetrators, or just anyone who thinks they could carry a firearm right now because the crime is out of control in New York City. You've been told crime is at historic lows, but 16 guns were seized. So at one token, yeah, it's a great job. Great job by the boots on the ground doing that type of work. But what is the actual picture that it gives you of New York City? You're told that crime is at historic lows, and we constantly have told you, our feet have hit the ground, that you're being gaslit. And to me, 16 guns at one parade, one event, that's a scary number. That's not a good sign. Getting 16 illegal firearms is not a good sign. Yes, it's great work by police work, by the NYPD, cops on the ground, boots on the ground. Hands down, I love it. We all love that kind of work. But that's not a good sign. That is a bad indication of what's going on in the city. We told you about Times Square. We told you about Central Park. We told you about the neighborhoods in New York City that are affected. You've been told the Bronx has been split up into two boroughs, which means that there's going to be more personnel and more oversight, and things should be better, even though things were supposedly fine anyway. 16 illegal firearms at the Dominican Day Parade, that should scare you. Marlon, John, good morning. John, what are your thoughts, brother?
Oh, what's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday. Hump day. Hope everybody's good today. Everybody joining us on Instagram. Just remember, we can't see your comments. So if you want to comment, you want to join the chat, we already got a few hundred people in here this morning. Come over to at the Finest Unfiltered on YouTube. We'll be able to see your comments. Look, I think New York City is the Dominican Day Parade in the Bronx just exposed every single thing that we've been talking about on here. The NYPD's overworked. They're understaffed. And the leadership is horrendous at putting these details together. They have no idea what they're doing. Rank and file look like complete messes at that detail. It was completely out of sync. They did a great job getting 16 guns off the street, but I don't think it was done coordinated, skilled work. It was done because of the chaos that was out there, and that's how many people were carrying guns. It's unbelievable. Like I put a post out, I think it was yesterday, or the day before. I said, if there's 16 guns that would take, the NYPD's admitting they got 16 guns from people at that parade, from perpetrators at that parade. That means there were hundreds of perpetrators carrying illegal firearms in attendance that day. There were dozens and dozens of crimes that went unreported. Again, like I said, all of these details appear to be being put together by people who have no idea what they're doing, people with big egos in the uniform ranks, and people that are on top of them that are civilians that literally have never worked these details, and they think everything they're doing is great. And, we'll go through the videos. We'll show you the chaos, but the videos that we show you are really not even all of it. I mean, because the majority of stuff that came out, people weren't videotaping. So there was a lot of crime that day that went unreported, and that come right on the heels of a 12-year-old being murdered in the Bronx, by gang violence. A guy lets off a round, a repeat violent offender lets off rounds on Bronx streets. Kids riding his bike to the deli. 12-year-old son of a retired NYPD squad sergeant And he's murdered in cold blood in the streets of New York. You know, people are fleeing, women with baby strollers are fleeing, and yet the NYPD has the audacity and the goal to do what they've been doing, which is come out literally right after this occurs, right after Dominican Day on Monday, and tell you how they're making history in the Bronx. It is a literal slap in the face to everybody. It's a slap in the face to rank and file members of the New York City Police Department. It's a slap in the face to people in the Bronx. It's a slap in the face to New York City residents. It's a slap in the face to all of us. We're literally being told lies, and you're being told you have to accept it. And the media is completely complicit on it, and it's all being done to myth build a billionaire heiress who was never a cop and pretend that she is the second coming of Jesus Christ and she is the savior of New York City, while you're watching her idiot Nepo silver spoon socialist Nepo baby Maya put down all of these ridiculous things. So there's just so much that I have to say about it, and I'm sure I'm going to offend everyone, and I'm glad because it needs to be said. And I just can't say enough how disgusting it is. 12-year-old boy murder in the streets. You have a parade. It's completely mismanaged, completely unhandled. You know, Billy Blastoff says outstanding police work. I'm going to say right now, I don't think it was outstanding police work. I think those guns were falling out of people's pockets. And, I don't think it was targeted, skilled police work. Like I said, I just don't see, I know what was occurring there. I had many of my friends that were working there. They told me what the hell was going on there. I'm watching these videos of what happened there, and it was not even controlled chaos. It was not even that. It was just pure, utter chaos, completely understaffed, completely overworked, completely mismanaged. That is the state of the NYPD. And yeah, it was a highlight on the Bronx this weekend, but I guarantee you this, Labor Day in Brooklyn, you're going to get the same thing. Understaffed, overworked, completely mismanaged. It is going to be probably the worst Labor Day on record. I mean, and the Bronx Dominican Day Parade, little wild, but I've never seen it like this before. Never like this before.
Yo, morning everyone. Happy Hump Day. Yeah, I'm gonna say that what you saw there is an exclusive of the Dominican Day Parade. We've been seeing it all over. Anytime there's large gatherings of youth, they seem to all start to wild out and do whatever they want. And not just youth too, young adults. We saw that during the next parade too. And even some older folks, some people in their 30s who you'd consider too old for that. So it's not exclusive to the Bronx or the Dominican Day Parade. But I think I think this goes back to what we said before that. What I said is that the West has a problem with nihilistic youth, and when you see things like that, it's that problem being put on display. It's these young people that have been, a lot of them grown up in the era of a weakened NYPD, and they've come to expect NYPD not to come down hard on them like we did in prior years, and they feel emboldened. And the results are what you saw at the Dominican Day Parade and what you've been seeing at these other parades. And I'm going to say, though, that probably after watching this show, I think you can expect a heavy package of cops at the West Indian Day Parade, because, after things like this, Tish knows that we're going to talk about it, and she knows the media are going to talk about it. So the problem is when we don't talk about it, and when these parades kind of coming under the radar with nobody talking, with nobody bringing it up beforehand, what happens? Well, the NYPD doesn't seem to be prepared. But when she knows the spotlight is on her, that's when they actually, have a ton of cops there, and, to prevent things from spiraling out of control. So, morning, Eric.
Yeah, good morning. I'm not trying to offend the cops. Believe me, the boots on the ground, I always support them. And yes, it is dangerous police work. Every time you're involved in a situation where you rip off an illegal firearm off the street, even if it's just stopping someone and it's a ticket, and it turns out to be a firearm recovered, it's a dangerous situation. But it just doesn't mean it's amazing police work. So I agree with you, John, because I saw it at the end of my career. You know, I retired September 2022. And John, Marlon, for years, especially under former Mayor Mike Bloomberg, and spilling out from former Mayor Giuliani, there were illegal firearms on the street. But actually retrieving an illegal firearm, every time you retrieved an illegal firearm during those times, you knew you just saved someone's life, right? And then people, when they, at least to my understanding and the experience that I had, was perpetrators, when they carried it, it was purposeful. They had a mission. They were actually going to use it. Because at that time, if someone was just carrying an illegal firearm, there was a good chance they would actually serve up to 3 years in jail and actually get sentenced. If they stopped, there was a lot much more support, and things made more sense back then. But then I saw the change. And at the end of my career, I remember the last year specifically, even maybe about a year before that, we started to get guns almost by accident. We were tripping on it. And it started to get easier. And I remember there were some times where many cops were in encounters. They just were getting what they thought was a summons. And it turned out to be retrieving a firearm in the most ridiculous situation. And with residents of the Bronx that really weren't perpetrators, people that weren't on the radar and people that you didn't expect having firearms. And so everyone started to carry. And now we see here it is 4 years later. Things are just getting worse under Jessica Tisch, people being gaslit, and they're told that crime's at historic lows, but 16 illegal firearms recovered. Yeah, listen, it's great police work. I always tout the guys, you're out there, you're doing intrusive police work, and I appreciate it. But to get 16 illegal firearms at one incident, it can't be amazing police work. I mean, just think, sometimes I remember working in the Lower East Side or in the Bronx, their guns were out there, but you had to work hard. There was a lot of effort, and to get those illegal firearms off the street, to actually catch someone in the act, having it on their person. Right? These guns were moving real quick because people knew that there was a good chance they were actually going to be sentenced, in comparison to now, where it's just a catch and release. So we saw that change, and it did get easier to get firearms. So at this point, to get 16 firearms, it's a little bit too crazy. It's a little bit too easy. And that's why I say to myself, if 16 illegal firearms were recovered, how many weren't? How many firearms were not recovered? That's the scary part. Not the ones that you got, you stopped any potential violence. But the ones that you did not retrieve, there was a potential for violence out there. 16 firearms is an insane amount. I can't think of a detail in recent years where there were 16 illegal firearms actually recovered, even at a West Indian Day Parade. So I think those numbers are just astronomical. Yes, great police work because it's dangerous, but is it really great police work? How much effort did the cops have to put in to actually get those illegal firearms off the street? So that gives you a good indication. What's the baseline look like? People are just carrying guns with no fear, no intimidation of the police department. There's absolutely no fear of the justice system, if there is one left. So it's not a good indication that things are on the uptick. It's actually an indication that New York City is just down to shit. And if you say, well, it's Zohran Mamdani hasn't even been in the office for a year. This stems from Eric Adams. It stems from former Mayor Bill de Blasio. And you got the same thing going right now with Zohran Mamdani. Nothing has changed. In fact, it's just hit rock bottom. 16 firearms is insane.
Well, I was saying in 2022, I said, you can't lose all these cops and expect to recover. You're going to send the NYPD into a death spiral. But, the geniuses like Dermot Shea, Jessica Tisch, William Bratton, they were like, no big deal. It's a great job. Everybody's going to sign up. And I'm like, I don't think so. You're going to have a big problem because you're operating on a real thin line as it is with 35,000 cops. You're operating on a real thin line. Like you're really skating. And what we saw in 22 was that the crime just spiked from 2020, right? Like we really went the hands-off style of policing that de Blasio, Shea, O'Neill, or we're going to go after the major crimes. You remember that push? We know policing minor crime doesn't keep us safe. All that. You really seen it like come in 2022. It really all started taking hold 2020, 2021, 2022. And then in 22, you had the idiot most corrupt mayor in New York City, Eric Adams, who thought he was a genius. I don't need 2 cops down in transit. I just have 1. I don't need all these cops at parades. I'll get civilians. I don't need all these guys making overtime. Meanwhile, he blew out the overtime budget more than anybody ever, right? And what he did was, and it can't be understated, for 4 years, we had an administration where every year more cops retired early, and resigned than any other period in history. And you couldn't keep up with attrition. They blew attrition out of the water. Now they play CompStat numbers with personnel numbers. They never had to do that before. This was a new phenomenon that now we do under Eric Adams with the whole perception versus reality, meaning we're the NYPD. We're just going to fucking lie to you. We're just going to be least transparent version of ourselves that we ever were. Not that we were ever fucking transparent, but like we're much less transparent now, and we got no problem getting up on the podium lying not only to our members but to the public every single day, and no one's being held accountable for any of it. We could tell you crime's down. We could tell you that we're full staff. The cops are healthy. The locker room's in a great place. And look, I'm not picking on the cops by any stretch of the imagination. I'm literally mouthing what the cops are telling me. It was a fucking disaster. It was an absolute disaster at the Bronx Dominican Day Parade. They were understaffed. You saw several videos already. What do you see? You see brawls on top of brawls. And that's where those firearm recoveries were coming from. They weren't coming from targeted intelligence. It wasn't targeted police work. You know, years past, like when we would do Labor Day, when we had Juve, what would occur is you would have all the outside commands come in, right? You have all the outside commands come in. They're going to police the detail. But the guys that were in that command, the guys that were in that borough, it was at that time, it was the anti-crime guys. Now it's the public safety guys, whatever you want to call them. They would be sent out in a targeted mission to find out who was having guns out there. We had people out there in plainclothes. We had undercovers out there. And they were watching and observing the crowd on top of we were observing the cameras. And we were sending crime teams out that know those areas, wherever it was, whether it was in the Bronx, whether it was in Manhattan, whether it was uptown, whether it's in Brooklyn, during Juve, wherever it was. And those guys went around and they were doing targeted police work, grabbing guns. They were grabbing guns. They were stopping things before it happened. That is not what occurred on Sunday. What we're showing you on these videos, and there's hundreds of videos. And again, I'm going to tell you again, not everything got captured. And stuff that did is just not being released. You know, the way that those guns were gotten was through exactly that. Understaffed, you have 2 cops surrounded by hundreds of people, brawl going on, and bam, they're able to get somebody because the kid's got a gun in his waistband. Again, 16 guns, that means there's hundreds in that crowd, if not thousands. So, you know, when outside people listen to this, they might hear this as, oh, you're picking on the cops. The upper echelon of the NYPD will make that claim. Oh, you're picking on the cops. No, we're not. We're absolutely telling you what we're being told. We're being told that it's being run ridiculously. We're being told that operations thinks they're like shot callers and they're calling shots from one police plaza and trying to do targeted police work from watching Argus cameras and body cameras and all this other stuff. What we're telling you is what we've been telling you. The NYPD is completely mismanaged. They're completely understaffed. And these guys, a lot of them, started at 0400 in the morning, and some of them didn't get out till around that time that night. Complete, utter disaster. Radio was jumping off. It was 1085 calls for help constantly, consistently, the whole day, to the point where they were calling for mobile field forces, and they were like, we don't have any more to send. And then at one point, they raise up. They want 2 RMPs. This is around like 334. They want 2 RMPs from every Bronx North, Bronx South, and Manhattan North command. Who in there, like, do you think they got them? They definitely didn't get them. You know why they didn't get them? Because that's probably all those commands had working that day. 2 to 3 RMPs. They're like, oh, let us get 2 sectors each, pull them off patrol and send them here. That has never happened before. This only happens now. And again, it's not just Mondani. This happened as a result of Eric Adams and now Mondani. This is what it is. Mondani's just continuing the lie. Crime's down. You're at historic lows. Police department's fine. We don't need more cops. Everything's good. Attrition rate's fine. Don't worry about making history. And the only history I'm seeing is that it looks like we're headed straight back to the 90s on like a fast pace, on like a real fast pace.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's a weird time period we're headed to. And in certain ways, it's even worse than the 90s, because I'll say one thing, at least in the 90s, they were afraid of cops. They're not afraid of cops now. And at least in the 90s, you had the veterans who were from the crack era and the crack wars. And you still had guys who were Vietnam veterans on the job. Okay. And we're talking guys, tough guys, and you don't have any of that now. And you don't even have, like, our generation itself. The mid 2000s cops are leaving too, so you don't even have us there, So that's the difference. And as we talked about numerous times before, 60% of the job is now millennial and Gen Z. So again, it's a much younger job, a much more inexperienced job, and a job lacking in veteran wisdom, and again, you see the results right there. Why didn't they think to send as many cops as they could to the Bronx to begin with, considering you've seen all these incidents before of youth just wilding out and cops having a struggle to get things under control because there's not enough, certainly there's not enough cops on scene. I don't understand. But yeah, there's a lot of people to blame for this, for this current state. We're just at the tail end of numerous years of failure, and that failure is just not in the city alone. I saw somebody in the chat make a comment about multiculturalism and how it's ruined all of civilized societies. It's a larger discussion, but I know that person isn't the only one thinking this. And I'm going to say it's not multiculturalism strictly. It's the fact that we've lost our identity, and we've become a soft society that's doesn't have the courage to stand up for what's right and what's wrong anymore. And the byproduct of all of that is that generation of kids you're seeing there all running loose, So it's not multiculturalism. I don't think. I think if we stood up for our values and call out what's right and wrong, then kids like that don't grow up like that. But we don't do that. Society at large doesn't do it. A lot of those communities themselves don't do it anymore. And this is what you get.
I want to address a comment here from one of our friends and listeners, GS Ventures. He actually says something. It must be something he said, John. So he says, John, those guns were gotten from intrusive police work. And I'm glad you're using the word intrusive, because that's exactly what it is. All the guns were retrieved from CRT and Borough Special Ops teams. So I know you said John, but I'm going to address this one. And John, if you want to address it later, that's up to you. So absolutely spot on. We're not saying that the cops that are there, the boots on the ground, are not doing intrusive police work. They're not doing their job. Absolutely. And as expected, it's done by those cops that are doing that type of police work. Your quasi anti-crime teams, which is your CRT and your Borough Special Ops teams. What I'm saying is there should be absolutely more of it. There should be more of those teams out there, especially in this environment right now with the amount of crime that we see. Now, let's be honest. Families don't give a shit about spreadsheets. When Jessica Tisch tells the public that crime is down 2%, 3%, 4% in this area or that area, historic lows, they don't give a shit about that. All they want to know is my child safe? Is my family safe? And so you can give them all the numbers you want. The reality is, if you're a resident of the Bronx right now, are you safe? You're looking at that parade right now like, damn, shit is out of control. 16 illegal firearms recovered. Yes, great job. The cops that are working are dealing with the cards that they're dealt with. And they dealt with an environment where crime is out of control and people carrying illegal firearms like it's a piece of candy. Now, I'm not saying those cops are doing their job. They're out there. Those are the cards they dealt with, and they're getting those guns. what we're saying is, think about what the state of the city is right now, that people have no fear, that it's much easier to get such an astronomical amount of firearms. What we're saying to years past, that we did just as good police work, or maybe even better, because we had to work so hard to get those firearms. But to get 16 firearms, we're not saying that the cops now are doing better police work or not. They're doing the job with the cars dealt with. What we're saying is, to retrieve 16 illegal firearms, it shows you it's much easier because everyone's carrying it. They're emboldened. There's no fear of the police. There's no fear of the justice system. And they're carrying it at a parade where there's supposed to be a huge omnipresence of police and intrusive police as well. So I think that's a huge indication that crime is just out of control. And as I said before, families don't give a shit about spreadsheets. They don't care about the numbers. You can tell them 2%, 3%, 4%. They don't care about those numbers. They care is my child safe. And there is a correlation, even though there's separate incidents. But don't tell the families that it's a separate incident, that a 12-year-old boy in the Bronx an innocent 12-year-old boy was shot by gunfire, by gang gunfire. And that is what's going on in New York City. People don't listen to spreadsheets. That's what they listen to, that a 12-year-old boy was shot in the Bronx and that 16 illegal firearms were recovered. That's the real story for them. So perception is reality. And their reality is it's out of control. And with that being said, I just want to say, I want to give a shout out to some of the cops that were at the scene who were outliers, who stood their ground and were ready to take care of business. It was a breath of fresh air to see that. Some of the cops, they look like they're not prepared at all, but there were a couple of outliers there who said they're not taking shit today and they're going to hold it down. So that is a breath of fresh air. And that's what I want to see, because no matter what, you're going to get complaints anyway. You are in an environment where you're so vulnerable. If you're actually doing your job, you're going to get complaints. Now, someone left a comment here earlier. So the cops don't want to do intrusive police work because of the How Many Stops Act. I don't believe that, because I don't care how much you throw at cops. They'll still go out there. The cops that want to do that type of work will go out there and do it. And we see it time and time again, right? Because we said here the CRT and Borough Special Ops teams are out there getting those guns. But clearly it's another indication that we've been telling you that the job is nowhere, and we said the job, the NYPD, is nowhere near 20,000 of numbers. And it's just getting scary and scary. And it's definitely not even, I believe it's not even at 50% capacity of 35,000 of active police officers that are healthy with their boots on the ground. Definitely not.
Oh, yeah. So, no, I'll take it back. Yeah, no, I take it back. Totally. You guys did a great job. Yeah. No, you guys did a great job. You know, all those brawls that there were no cops there, that you guys were all set up for failure. Yeah, no. Them stepping on your cop cars, all the violence that occurred. You guys did a great job. You know, you guys did a great job. Just answer me one question. All the arrests were made by CRT, or all the arrests were taken by CRT? Which one was it? Because I think it's the latter, right? I think that guns were falling out of people's pockets, right? So come on, let's call it what it is. Let's call it what it is. Let's stop the bullshit, really, because this is the thing that annoys the fuck out of me, right? This is the shit that really gets under my skin. It's like, look, you're being set up there for failure. Your own children are being murdered. You're being murdered. You're being assaulted. You're being set up for failure. And then I got guys defending I got guys defending the diaphragm law. I got guys defending the lack of police. I got guys defending fucking the deployment. I got guys defending the diaphragm law, defending the protest settlement agreement, defending corruption, literal police corruption. Yeah, so what? Yeah, so what? And then you're going to defend this? I mean, this was a disaster. This was not targeted police work. This was a shell of what the police department is. Now, look, it sucks for those of you guys that want to pretend like, yeah, we're the police. We do great job. Yeah, we're pulling steel. We're doing this. We're doing that. We're just as good as any other era. Yeah, you probably are just as good as any other era, but you're being set up for failure. If what was coming out of the New York City Police Department is true, none of this happens. None of this happens. The Bronx doesn't look like it does now. Brooklyn doesn't look like it does now. Come on. Come on with this bullshit. Manhattan certainly doesn't look like it looks now. Times Square doesn't look like it looks now. You know, I mean, it's a joke, dude. It's honestly a joke. You are a demoralized, overworked police force. You have about 17,000 people, maybe maybe that are actually doing police work. You're led by all leftist women civilians who know nothing about fucking police work, and they boss around spineless, cowardly eunuchs who cut their own nuts off and fucking have no clue what they're doing. And yet you want me to sit there and pat you on the back and just say, oh, yeah, no, everything's great. You guys all did a great job. You guys did everything. Everything was good. Everything went according to plan. Just like last year at the Labor Day when you had a fucking mass shooting on the parade route and we were told everything went according to plan. So you planned for a mass shooting? You planned for a mass shooting? Everything went. Does that look like it went according to plan on Dominican Day Parade? So no. I'm not going to buy the bullshit. Sorry if it offends and bruises your egos, but the reality is a lot different from the perception. The perception is everything's good. The whole split in the Bronx is working where they said, oh, we're going to give you 200 extra new cops. And we all laughed because we said the Bronx isn't getting 200 extra new cops. And they didn't get 200 extra new cops that are actually doing patrol or doing police work. And the whole split is a disaster because if it wasn't a disaster, you wouldn't be calling from help from patrol precincts that are already diminished. You're calling on a 4 to 12 for 2 cars from every command. They're turning out 2 or 3 cars. So would you leave? The sergeant and 1 other car? Meanwhile, they were probably already down that. How many people came when that call happened? Why did that call have to happen if you guys were doing such great police work? Why did it happen? There was such targeted police work going on. If everything was so organized, how did this happen on block after block after block where you have cops outnumbered by thousands? Complete chaos everywhere to the point they can't even stop people from twerking on their van. I'm like, come on, bro. Give me a break. So you could throw all the shade you want out there, but the reality bites a lot harder than the perception. And I'm sorry, I know a lot of guys got egos, but it is what it is. I'm not talking about the rank and file. I'm telling the situation that you guys are being put in. If you want to pretend everything's good, you want to put blinders on, that's your choice to go out there like a fucking idiot with blinders on. I'm not gonna second that. I don't need to do it. I'm not in that organization anymore. I'm calling it out exactly what the fuck it is, regardless who likes it or who doesn't like it. It's the truth. Crime's not down. That was a disaster and it should never happen again. But guess what? It's going to happen again on the Labor Day. And if there's another mass shooting at Labor Day, guess what? We'll hear again. Oh, everything went according to plan. Crime's down. We're at historic lows in Brooklyn. Like it's absolutely disgusting and infuriating. As a taxpayer that's dealing with all of this bullshit, because I pay a lot of money in New York City taxes. So, if anybody wants to shut me up, either buy me out or pay my taxes. Do something, because I'm watching this. This doesn't look like any police department I've ever seen. And I totally agree with you, Marlon. I think it's worse now because there is no fear for the cops. And people actually went to jail in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Nobody goes to jail anymore. There is zero fear. And I got news for whoever the multicultural thing is. New York was always multicultural, and it wasn't an issue. Now New York is, let's do kids' gloves on every predator out there. Let's not put anyone in jail. Let's keep everybody out of jail. Let's emasculate our police force. Let's lie to the public and tell them crime's down. And this is the result of it. Nobody's afraid because there's no consequences for anything. This is the result. This is called hedonism, people. No consequences for action. Just indulge yourself. Spit on a cop. Punch a cop. Go dance on the cop's car. Put your Dominican flag on his head. You think, and then guess what happens? People start getting shot. There's thousands of people carrying guns on the street. No, but you want me to believe that 16 guns were taken out by targeted intrusive police work? Get the fuck out of here. Not happening. Not happening. But
yeah, I saw another comment in the chat that I want to bring up. So it's from Boston Bob. He says the problem don't want to assimilate anymore. They want their own groups in their own areas. And I'm gonna have to push back against that, Boston Bob, just like I push back against multiculturalism, because the problem is, I think the problem a lot of especially conservatives have is that they think this is only in a certain area. And what I'm saying is it's not just in this area. This is happening to all over America. And it's just, yeah, it may be a little worse there, but look at the Knicks games. Look at post Knicks games. There were people of that was the most multicultural violence I've seen, and rioting I've ever seen, And again, it's you're seeing kids from. It doesn't matter where they're from. They could be kids from the hood, Hispanic kids from the hood, Black and Hispanic kids from the hood, like that, or you're seeing the white kids in the Knicks riots too. And the point that I'm trying to make here is that this is a problem with the youth. Okay, it's a problem with the youth, and it's a problem that police departments, especially here in New York, have lost our authority amongst them. None of them fear us anymore. Okay, and society itself, Western society itself, this is a problem happening in all of these societies. That we've seemed to have lost the youth, and you're getting, anytime you have them in mass gatherings, they go wild, and it becomes you've seen the problems that come afterwards, the aftermath. And again, it's a problem of not being multicultural. It's a problem of losing your identity, not calling out the stupid shit, not standing up for Western culture, American culture, and American society. And we stood by and let these youth we stood by and let these youth get corrupted by a lot of things in the media over the last certainly last 10 years. When we saw what happened in Ferguson and BLM and all this crap, and what should have been happening back then is that all this stuff should have been getting called out as being a lie and being wrong. You saw George Floyd, that shit should have all been called out. And because it didn't, okay, we spiraled down this path of weakened police, of being community affairs cops instead of being the cops we traditionally were, instead of having authority and having these kids, having them respect that authority. We became the community police, and this is what these are the byproducts of it now. Okay, so and again, it's not just here, okay, because this is happening to all over this. This is happening in the burbs too, okay, because none of these kids respect our authority. And again, in the Knicks, when we were looking at the post Knicks violence, right? A lot of those kids I pointed out were kids who look like dweebs, okay, dweebs, kids who look like they weighed like 60 pounds soaking wet, and they were all doing that crap, and these are kids who wouldn't have dreamed of doing that years ago in the 90s, but now they're all doing it because they've all been emboldened by government and police departments.
Well, I think there's a couple of flashpoints here that I want to hit. A couple of topics I want to touch. So the first thing is this. Someone made a comment here. I can't even find it anymore. I think it was Brooklyn Girl in New York City, something like that. She actually said it to you, Marlon. And she had said basically that, would it make a difference if the parade was just held in Manhattan? Like, why also hold a parade in the Bronx if there's an issue with manpower? Listen, parades, events, and details, that's a part of New York City culture, something that happens often. And to suppress that because the New York City Police Department won't admit that they don't have the manpower is a problem. But this goes beyond manpower. This is just not manpower. This shows you what the state of New York City is right now. There's no fear of the NYPD. We've seen how the Knicks riots play out. We've seen just incidents with cops involved. Two cops we showed you on Monday, two young Asian rookie police officers just totally abused and ridiculed by social media agitators. There's absolutely no fear of the NYPD. That is important. There needs to be a healthy fear of the NYPD. Anyone that wants to challenge me on that, I'll have that discussion all day. Because I've been told by numerous people that people should not fear the NYPD. No, there is a sense of healthy fear, and it's called discipline. And does this look like people that have discipline, that have any fear of the NYPD so that the NYPD could control parades and keep people safe? Absolutely not. Now, here's the other flashpoint. GS Ventures. I mean, obviously, you're an active police officer, or maybe you've recently retired. And somehow find this as an insult. It's not an insult. So GS Venture says, I'm telling you from a person who was actually out there that it was intrusive police work that got those guns not falling out of pocket. So I'll say this. What we're saying, this is what I said early on, and please listen to my words. The cops that are out there are dealing with the cards they have dealt with. Yes, they're doing intrusive police work. Now, I'm not going to speak for John, but I'm going to make my perception. I don't think John is saying that the guns are actually falling out of people's pockets. But I used to use that terminology also. And I used to say at the end of the career, end of my career, look, guns are just falling out of people's pockets. We have to admit that crime is so out of control, that people are so emboldened in New York City, that there is no fear of an actual jail sentence, that they're actually carrying illegal firearms at a parade, maybe with a purpose or maybe not. That's what we're saying here. The ability, years ago, when I first started doing special operations as an anti-crime sergeant, we got illegal firearms off the street. We did it well. But it took an extensive amount of work. It took confidential informants. It took intelligence. It took a real good eye of out there watching people all day and watching the baseline and looking for those behavioral indicators to get that illegal firearm. Because in my experience, when we caught a violent perpetrator or anyone carrying an illegal firearm, they were stepping with a purpose and they were going somewhere to use that firearm, and we actually saved someone's life. Now, don't get me wrong. It could be 16 lives that were saved. It could be 50 lives. It could be 100. One gun could take out many bodies. But the reality is, for 16 illegal firearms at one Dominican parade, yes, it is far easier to get these guns because there's no fear of the police. There's no fear of the justice system. That's what we're saying. At least that's what I'm saying. I'm not taking it away, or you should not find this insult. I'm not taking it away from the cops that are out there. What did I say early on? That every time you retrieve an illegal firearm, it's a dangerous situation. But you have to admit, it is far easier to get these firearms than it was before. And that all these environmental factors and all these factors by the legislation, all these factors of the weak leadership, and all these factors of the state of the city are a byproduct of retrieving 16 illegal firearms. And if you don't believe that, you're not being honest with yourself. To think that the cops are in that case, if you believe that getting 16 illegal firearms is not an indication of what's going on in the city, and just think of how many guns were not retrieved, and it's just amazing police work, then these are the best cops we've ever seen our entire lives. And the cops in the 50s, and the cops in the 60s, the cops in the 90s, and our era and now are all doing the job with the cards that they dealt with. And I agree, Marlon. In the 70s and 80s, crime is out of control, but at least when someone was apprehended, there was a good chance they actually would serve their time. And what we see right now is far worse. And we're on a spiral that we can't even come back from. And so, yes, they were doing intrusive police work, but do not take this as an insult. The reality is 16 illegal firearms, it was far easier to get those guns because they're out there. Doesn't take away from the fact that they're putting themselves in a dangerous situation. They're dealing with the cards they're dealt with. But to think that it's an insult, I think you're not actually looking at the real picture. And this is what happens. Cops get a blind spot if you say something that hits their ego. And GS Ventures, I think you're talking from your ego right now. Let's be honest. 16 illegal firearms, that's not a good number. That's not a good number for the people of the city that have to worry about the 12-year-olds walking the streets of the Bronx. That's not a good number. And for, I think it was Brooklyn Girl in New York City who spoke about what borough. Does it matter what borough? You know what? There was a time it would matter. That's a flashpoint. There's a time where maybe you wouldn't want to do it in East New York because the amount of violence, the gang violence that's going on there. So it's important where we have deployments. But right now, I think the entire city is saturated, and it doesn't make a difference where it's at.
First of all, I'm just going to say, show me how anyone's doing intrusive police work when there's zero police work going on. Like, how are you doing intrusive police work? How? You know, maybe a couple of dudes got hit on the side streets and you grabbed them, but there's zero control, there's zero order. There's no, that's not intrusive police work when you're coming into an absolute disaster that New York City and the NYPD, the management of the NYPD, did not put a proper deployment out there, and the streets of the Bronx were literally taken over. You had no control of that street. You could do intrusive police work when that street's under control, when people are there, when, you know, there's not a literal savagery going on all around you. I mean, there's UFC fight after UFC fight. Where are the cops? How are you doing intrusive police work in that scenario? So am I being literal when I say that the guns are falling out of their pocket? No, I'm not being literal when I say that. No, the gun didn't just fall out of the guy's pocket, but he brought attention to himself because of the debauchery that was in there. And then you guys were able to see those guns easily. That's because they're emboldened, because the city of New York has told people that when you carry illegal firearms and we arrest you, nothing's going to happen to you. So don't worry about that. And as a result of that, like I said, there were hundreds, if not thousands of people that day carrying illegal firearms. So getting 16 firearms off the street that day, is it good work? Yeah. But it should tell everyone that lives in the Bronx currently, every member of service, that I need to move my family out here immediately, because I got to get my family out here immediately, because that means there's thousands upon thousands of people carrying illegal firearms in the streets every day. I'm not diminishing anybody taking a gun off the street at all. It's very dangerous work. Being at that detail, even if you're a fucking newly promoted, just got out of the traffic agent, and you don't know your head from your ass elbow, and you're sitting out there, you're in a very dangerous environment that day, my friend, whether you know it or not. You should be lauded for what you're doing, because believe me, how much you're getting paid is not worth the danger that you're being put in. But don't sit here and try to tell me like the NYPD had things under control, because they didn't. Appreciate you for being out there, and I get it. But again, I speak to a lot of people that were out there, a lot of bosses that were out there, a lot of guys who have a lot of stuff under their belt, including a lot of gun arrests, and they got no reason to tell me what they're telling me. They're not telling me to blast the NYPD. They're telling me because it's the fucking truth. And so I don't know. Again, I don't know how anybody could justify any of what. Again, these are just stupid videos. And what do you see in these stupid videos? The NYPD is outmatched, understaffed, and the streets of New York are not controlled by the NYPD. We used to have an omnipresence, people. We no longer have it. August 6th, guess what we got coming up in Manhattan? For those of you that were asking, we have the next Dominican Day Parade that's going to go in Manhattan. And guess what? I guarantee that one's going to be a fucking disaster too. If you're going to run it the same way, if you're going to continue to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, it's going to be a disaster. I mean, what hasn't been a disaster? What hasn't been a disaster? So, yeah, was there some little pieces of work that was good work? Yeah. Overall, it was a fucking disaster. So, I mean, if it bruises anyone's ego, good. It should, because you need to understand the reality of what you're being put in, instead of like the bravado with the chest. Like, yeah, no, we're the police. We're pulling steel. Like, dude, you're not doing like that. The good job would have been if there were no gun arrest. Right? Because everything would have been under control. The people carrying guns wouldn't have been acting the fool. They would have been very afraid to either carry that gun or act a fool with a gun on them to bring attention to themselves, to where they winded up getting arrested. That's my point. Are guns falling out of people's pockets? Yeah, they are, literally and figuratively.
Yeah, you brought up a point earlier, John. You said that operations was calling the shots. So what were they doing? Looking at cameras and looking at drone footage?
They were looking at cameras and calling shit out. Like, oh, yeah, look at this guy over here. This guy over here is doing this. Like, just really, really micromanaged, dumb things going on. Now, look, if you see somebody carrying a firearm, totally different story. Totally get it. You know what I mean? That's a totally different scenario. I'm not saying that. You see something that's about to head off, obviously, you're looking to save lives. I'm talking about in the middle of absolute chaos, now pretending like we're in the early 2000s under Rudy Giuliani doing the broken windows theory of policing, and we're going to start to police minor crimes again in the middle of this nonsense. That's what I'm talking about. Like, you have to be an absolute moron, because not only are you going to start a riot, you're going to make the situation much worse for the cops, much more dangerous for the cops. So, yeah, what I'm saying is absolute eunuchs who have no business where they are. And that goes for the majority of UCOs, like the overwhelming majority of you. You honestly, you guys suck. You're the worst version of the NYPD I've ever seen in my fucking life. So if that bruises your ego, good, it should, because you guys suck. Like, you guys suck. You're a bunch of phonies. You're a bunch of liars. You have no integrity. I hope you hang all your medals and your walls right next to your vaccine card. So I don't give a fuck. Like, it is what it is. The truth sucks. It sucks, but somebody's got to say it.
I just want to say, I think sometimes the cops are really short-sighted, and it's a little bit self-serving and a little bit selfish and kind of naive, immature. And that goes to that comment for GS Ventures. To take that as a personal attack, I think you're not really looking at the big picture. Do you really care about what the safety of New York City, or you care about the egos? Like, no one's saying the cops did a bad job. No one's saying that you didn't get these firearms off potential perpetrators or actual perpetrators. What we're saying is it's not a good look. The fact that you retrieved 16 firearms, that's a little too damn easy. That says that shit is out of control. I mean, there was a time, even working at the West Indian Parade, we retrieved legal firearms there, but you still had to really search for it. Like, people were trying to be incognito and hide from the cops. But clearly they're not hiding. They're carrying guns in plain sight at the Dominican Day Parade. That means they think that no one's going to stop them. There's no fear of the NYPD at all. They don't give a fuck. And I tell you, that's scary. And that's why GS Ventures, why are you not saying, like, damn, we got 16 guns? That's a lot at one parade. Shit's out of control. If you're taking this as a personal attack, we're not saying, oh, the cops didn't do a good job. You saw someone that appeared to have a firearm because they just carried, they don't give a shit, and you got them. Yes, that's dangerous. You did your job. But what we're saying is that's not a good picture of what New York City is. If there's 16 illegal firearms recovered at one Dominican Day Parade, what is it like on an everyday situation just for someone who walks through the Bronx right now? If you live in Patterson houses and you're across from Mott Haven, what's it like for you walking outside your house right now? If there's 16 illegal guns at the Dominican Day Parade, how many illegal guns are there just walking around the Bronx right now on an everyday case without an event like the Dominican Day Parade? I think it's selfish to think, oh, are you saying the cops did a bad job? No one's saying the cops did a bad job. But come on, that's a little ridiculous. I have to admit, I know I feel myself like, damn, we did a good job. We went out there and getting guns. But the last year, there were times like, oh my God, I remember some guys just doing overtime and they stopped someone for a beer, not thinking anything. The guy has a gun on him. I mean, it's just out of control. And now it's just the state of the city's worse. We're trying to make the comparison, show you. Don't you care that a 12-year-old kid was shot? Jessica Tisch is telling the public crime is at historic lows. But then 16 illegal guns are retrieved at the Dominican Day Parade. No one say the cops did a bad job. That's immature thinking. You have to see the whole entire picture, and let's start being adults about this.
Yeah, and that's all I'm saying. You know, was there good work done? Yeah, absolutely. But you're being set up for failure. Overall, you were set up for complete, absolute failure. It was a complete shit show. And everybody still went out there and did their job that day. Yeah, you guys deserve credit. Overall, as an organization, you get an F-. Like, it's unbelievable, dude. Yeah, well, there are people that got A+ during that. Yeah, and that's usually what's occurring here. You know, before, you know, the department used to get B's and C's. Now they're getting F's. You know, while the individual rank and file cops that were out there are getting A+. I mean, like, I if I need to explain this to you, then, you know, just put the sunglasses on and keep doing what you're doing. Like, that's it. Don't worry about it. Keep voting. Mondani's got your back. Adams had your back. Tisch got your back. Caban had your back. Everybody got your back. Don't worry about it. They'll all be there for you. You know, when the shit hits the fan, they'll all be right there at your back. Don't worry about it. You know, just don't get it. Make sure you don't get any speed cameras, and just don't get into a shooting. And if you do, try to make sure they're white. You know, so.
Yeah, the idea that they can sit in 1PP and micromanage this stuff is crazy, because we kind of talked about this back in 2025 from after we saw Tisch's State of the NYPD. And we said that part of the plan is to use things like drones and things like data to micromanage cops in real time, because they don't have enough cops. So they feel they can use all this technology to shift around resources as needed, and via that way they can still put a handle on crime and disorder. And so to me, it's kind of crazy that we're having them do that now. I mean, is that going to work at the West Indian Day Parade? I mean, when you know, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people are there, do we actually think that's going to work? Yeah, this city, The hubris of all of this is unbelievable to me. The fact that they actually think that this is going to work, it just boggles my mind. The point is you need cops. Okay, you need physical boots on the ground. Without physical boots on the ground, none of this is going to work. And you're seeing it there.
GS Ventures, brother, thank you so much. Now we're having an adult conversation. I appreciate you saying that. GS Ventures says, I literally told my coworkers it's really bad out there. The fact that we got 16 guns is alarming. Yes, that's what we're telling you. Thank you. That's an adult conversation. Cops did their job with the cars they've dealt with. Yes. If there's 16 illegal firearms out there, do I want the cops to get those guns? Absolutely. But what we're saying is that these guys are walking around, they're bebopping, they don't give a shit. They got guns hanging out where you can see them. They're not trying to conceal them. There's no fear in their minds of the NYPD. There's no fear in their minds of the justice system. So that's a real conversation. And yes, believe it or not, I'd like to believe that I could get every gun at a parade. But the reality is, it's a needle in a haystack. I used to say all the time, every time we got one illegal firearm, man, there's thousands we missed. Thousands. And when John, earlier you said hundreds, I think it's thousands. That's how many guns are missed. Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. For every gun that you get, there are thousands you missed. And we're talking about illegal firearms. We're not talking about legal gun owners. And this is New York City. What happened to all those signs that say no guns out there? Apparently they didn't work. What happened with all the legislation of being kind, right, to our black and brown brothers, and everything's fine. And this is not race. This is the reality. At the Dominican Day Parade here in the Bronx, where crime is at an all-time high, it's out of control. Don't tell me the Bronx is a great place right now. I lived in the Bronx for a decade. I know what it's like. Even in a good neighborhood, you turn the corner, you don't know what shit's going to happen. So don't even tell me. I lived in the Bronx. I know what the Bronx is like. And it's even worse right now. And don't tell me, oh, we split it to do 2 boroughs. It's great. Yeah, 2 boroughs. Where are the cops? Where'd you get them from? So what I'm telling you is, yes, at some point, it made a difference where deployment is because of potential gang violence, but the whole city is saturated. Times Square is a shit show. Central Park, that doesn't look too good either right now. It's no longer isolated. Well, here's your bad neighborhoods. The entire city is fucked. And so the NYPD, with the boots on the ground, is doing their job. And to your comment, Marlon, I agree 100%. When we talk about too much oversight, we talk about that type of administrative leadership where they're so involved in everything that the cops do, that eliminates critical thinking. That actually inhibits the cops from doing their job. That's the worst type of leadership that you could have, where you have people hovering over you. That's absolutely ridiculous. Now, if it's going to be supplemental, that they're there in operations and they have certain tools to assist the cops, sure. But the cops should be the ones running the show and letting them know what tools they need. Not where operations is telling the cops what to do when they're not even at the scene. That's absolutely ridiculous. That's foolish to run police work like that. Any organization that would be foolish, especially in law enforcement. So yes, are guns falling out of people's pockets, John? I'm going to say yes. Maybe literally, but figuratively speaking, absolutely. If anyone thinks it's far easier to get guns, it is right now because of the indication of what's going on in the city. Crime is out of control, and they're telling you it's at historic lows. So GS Ventures, shout out to you, brother. You're out there doing the job. My hat's off to you. I tip my hat off to you for anyone that's doing this job in this environment. But the reality is that should worry you. 16 illegal firearms. Your brothers and sisters, their lives are at risk right now. If 16 illegal firearms were recovered, how many firearms they didn't see that could have shot their asses? That's what's important.
Oh, you're muted, John.
Yeah, like I said, it's just a microcosm of the entire city, like that parade that showed you exactly all of the things that are happening. Overall leadership was horrendous. And I'm not knocking operations for running when something's necessary. I'm saying that they can't differentiate when something's necessary and not. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you see something that's life-threatening, you see something brewing, it's totally different, right? It's a little bit different now. Like, you do have eyes from the outside, right? Like, you do. They got the JOC up, the Joint Operation Command Center, where, basically they have the whole city camera. They could zoom in. on certain cameras. So yeah, there are things you're going to notice. Maybe you do notice a guy moving a gun in his waistband. Obviously, they should not say anything. You know what I mean? Get units there, get them that information, show them that video. Look, this guy, boom, get it to those public safety teams, whatever. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is when you want to pretend like, oh, let's just do this because I saw this and I want to look cool. Like, no, you're not just going to do stupid shit like that, especially when everything was out of control. Especially the Bronx has been on fire this summer. And I don't care what those crime numbers have said. Again, they are not. I said it the other day. I said on social media, Reza Chowdhury had put a post out and he put the crime numbers for New York City Transit. You're being told crimes at historic lows in New York City Transit. And he put the actual numbers up and they're staggering. I'll bring them up in a little while. But what I said, I quote tweeted his post and I said on that post, I said that the NYPD crime statistics are not a reliable source of information. They're not an accurate source of information. And someone came up and they were like, well, you think anyone believes you? And I'm like, I don't care if you believe me or not. It's just the truth. I'm not here to tell you to believe the truth or not. You probably still think that everything is safe and effective. You probably still think social distancing was good. Wearing a mask was good. I'm not here to prove you wrong or to change your mind. I'm just telling you what the truth is. The truth is they're not reliable numbers. I don't want to change your mind. I don't care if you don't want to believe that. If you think that the NYPD as a whole, as an organization, did a great job, I'm not here to change your mind. The reality is they didn't. They did a horrible job. But if you think that they did a great job at the Labor Day when there was a mass shooting on the parade route in front of hundreds of cops, then all right, I'm not here to change your mind. The reality is that wasn't according to plan, and they didn't plan for a mass shooting to happen, and it happened. But you had a mayor that could care less about being the mayor, and you had a police commissioner that is pushing a public relations spin more than she's focused on actually providing public safety to the people of the city of New York. And why are we pushing the public safety spin? To build my own myth and my own character of who I am and what I've done. It's a fight against reality today in New York City. And again, you know what? I want to take it back about New York City. It's a fight against reality in every Democrat-controlled state and city across America. Everything we talk about on here when it comes to New York City, when we talk about the actual lies that are coming out of police departments and police leaders, the incompetence, the corruption that are coming out of those police departments, that is happening nationally across every Democrat-controlled state in the country. Chicago, anything you want to say, LA, Maryland, Baltimore, wherever else. I can't think off the top of my head. But anywhere you want to look at it, Newark, Minnesota, Minneapolis, all of these places, at DC, everything we talk about, they're all running the same campaign. Perception versus reality. Crime's actually down. Murders and shootings are actually down. Crimes at historic lows. They're all saying the same thing. The residents are all saying the exact opposite. You have thousands of victims telling you that they were victimized and what the police department did, where they either refused to make a report or when they did make a report, they made it for less of a crime. And then their perpetrator never was held accountable. And then you got the real egregious situations. And you got then you get the other egregious situations where someone actually does get arrested and charged for what they did because it's so horrific and it has so much public attention that the police department actually follows through with it. And then you have woke district attorneys that are lowering those charges, or you have judges that aren't putting these people in jail because what are they all trying to do across the country? Lower jail populations across the country. So it's literally insane. But if I want to blame anyone for anything, yeah, of course, the Democrats own all of this, but it's those Democratic politically appointed managers in the police department that are really to blame. The police department is doing more damage to public safety than bail reform, than the socialists, than any piece of legislation you could ever put out there, because they're literally lying for them. And they're furthering the narrative that all of this stuff is working. All of this stuff works. We need to defund the cops further. We need to lower the head count of the cops further. We need to do all of this, take all this money, put it towards violence interrupters, put it towards all of this other stuff. And what's happening as a result of it? Your police departments become more emasculated. They have less staff. The cops are more overworked. And then you lost all of the omnipresence in all of these cities, and wild, feral youth now control the streets. You know, you ever hear the old saying of the old street crime unit, we own the night? The NYPD does not own the night. Those feral group of youth, they own the night. I know a couple of people, oh, I'm offended by this. I think it was even you, Hood Mayor, said he's offended by this. You shouldn't be offended by this, because if you really took a good look at this is a brilliant analogy that Marlon put here. Is if you look, it's Lord of the Flies in the Bronx, right? What is it? It's all of these feral youth have taken over. They've taken over the streets of New York while the cop runs away. That is exactly what occurred at the Dominican Day Parade. And so anyone that wants to fight reality, I'm not here to change your mind, but you're fighting reality. You know, you're fighting reality with the perception you want to have, but it's the perception you want to have is really it's really off the mark. You're really missing the mark. You're not even shooting the guy next to you's target. You're shooting the guy 3 downs from your target.
Yeah. Yeah, Hood Mayor. This image is directly referencing Lord of the Flies. Okay. And that is literally what's happening in a lot of these communities, you know, when these kids start wilding out. Okay. And like John said, it's not just New York. It's all these progressively run cities. I don't know what the plan is. You know, I've speculated many times before because it's something I think about all the time. Like, what exactly is the plan here? You know, I mean, they see the way things are going, and yet it's like they want to, you know, perception management is the you know, the goal of the day, instead of telling the truth and trying to bring back order to these places. You know, what does a tourist think when they see these things happening in a city? You know, these cities don't seem to care about tourism money anymore, you know, which is kind of weird because, you know, tourism used to be a big deal for a lot of these cities like Chicago and, you know, New York. But when your city has a perception of being very dangerous, the tourism revenue dries up because nobody wants to come here and be part of it. Who wants to show up at any NYC parade now, knowing that, you know, you have roaming feral youth that could attack you at a moment's notice, you know? And especially if they think you're out of place or you know, they see you as you know, they don't see you as a regular here, you know. I think it's a big problem, and I wonder where what the plan is for these cities, because also keep in mind that these youth are going to grow. What are they going to grow up into? Okay, a lot of these kids are teenagers now, but in a couple of years they'll be 20-year-olds. What are they going to be doing productively in these cities, in these areas, right? Well, what's going to happen then? I think you know, these cities need to cut the crap, and they need to. I would say at this point we even need public service announcement, you know, commercials telling them you can't do that, don't do that. Okay, you're gonna get yourself arrested for it, because it's getting dangerous. And if you think we're you know, be exaggerating, look at how many road rage incidents have been happening where a firearm ends up getting discharged. You know, I think that's something that's not being. I don't think the city tracks it, but I think those have been happening more and more often these days. And it goes back to the point that there's so many people carrying firearms. You know, carrying illegal firearms. There's so many people emboldened to walk around with it because they no longer fear the police.
Well, I think it's a great conversation to talk about what's the reflection of what happens at the parade as far as what goes on in the city. And I think a parade is supposed to be, to me, it's supposed to be like a showcase of what the city's like, right? Because all eyes are on a parade, right? When we have a parade, it's televised. People from all over the world are watching that parade. And when I say that, yes, people from all over the world are watching that parade because it's being held in New York City, whether it's in the Bronx or Brooklyn, it doesn't matter. There are many people outside this country that don't even understand the difference, that there's a distinction or separation of boroughs. They just here in New York City. And so all eyes are on it. So a parade is supposed to be a showcase of what New York City is like. And to me, it's showcasing what's really going on in New York City. The fact that the 16 illegal firearms, there's so much violence happening at one parade, is really a showcase of what's going on in the actual city. And that's why I say crime is saturated throughout the entire city. So for anyone who believes that crime is at historic lows, just watch these parades, because it's where everything comes together. It's where all these gangs and all the violent perpetrators or anyone that wants to just wow out meet at these parades and know that there's no consequence, or at least feel that there's no consequence. And for many, there is no consequence, because how many people went to that parade and left that parade with their illegal firearm and went home? How many people engaged in illegal activity and were never arrested and held accountable for it? How many people taunted cops at that scene and were not held accountable for it? There's someone here that keeps saying that that the cops are pussy. And who's that? I don't know. Someone here keeps making the comment. The whole world is pussyfied right now. Absolutely. The whole country has been pussyfied, even our U.S. military, and I'll say it straight out. So, yes, we want a better reflection. We want more testosterone. We want more support for the cops so they do their job and they're not ridiculed and sanctify their dignity. And that's why we talked about those two cops on Monday. Yes, those two cops on Monday are being taunted by social media agitators just for likes and just for clicks, and there's no directive on how to handle themselves. And yes, to be strong, you need a backbone. And the cops don't have a backbone right now. They don't have any support. They have weak leadership. They have legislators that want to destroy and eradicate the police force. So yes, are cops pussyfied right now? They sure are. Are there outliers? That's why I said there's outliers to see at the parade. But on a whole, in generalized, is the force pussyfied? Yes. That's why there's 16 illegal firearms retrieved at the Dominican Day Parade. Yes, I'm not blaming the boots on the ground. I'm blaming the entire nomenclature and all these contributing factors to it. So if anyone thinks that this is a good reflection of the NYPD, then you're not having an honest conversation. We're having this honest conversation. Yes, we're often blackballed for what we say because we say the truth. We want a better reflection. For anyone who says, oh, the NYPD did so great, they got 16 illegal guns, and you want business to continue on, then do you really care about your brothers and sisters? Because I care. I don't want one of my brothers and sisters getting shot. And 16 illegal firearms is damn scary. And if you're not scared by that number, then you're not looking at the big picture. Yeah, they'll have a press conference and they'll lay out all the guns. And they'll make this pretty scene, like, look how many guns they got. Cops did an amazing job. Most guns ever at a parade. Who knows? Maybe you'll hear that. That is not good. That should be scary to, like, wait a minute. 16 guns. Holy shit. 16 illegal guns. What were the records on the perpetrators that were in possession of firearms? What were their intentions? What gangs were they part of? These are things that you haven't heard of. There's a lot more context that goes behind someone that's with that illegal firearm. How many bodies were attached to those illegal firearms? These are scary things. This is the big picture. This is the conversation we should be having. Not hurt egos like, oh, the cops didn't do a good job. This is baby talk. Honestly, stop.
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying 16 illegal firearms is not a good number.
Yeah, no, dude, I was just going to say about like the records too. Like you can't even trust people's criminals records today because people aren't properly charged anymore with anything. You know what I mean? So the kid never even got charged with a felony by the police department, even though he should have. And then so he's getting out on an ACD. He doesn't even have a misdemeanor on his record. You don't even know the crime ever fucking happened. And then the clean slate, that wiping people's records completely clean. So like you can't even trust the records too. So when someone actually does have bad record, you're like, wow, how many arrests do they really have? How many? Because we always said that, right? Even when someone had one arrest, they're like, that ain't the first time that dude committed a crime. Like this dude's been committing a crime for a long time. This is the first time he got caught, you know? And so that's the thing. Like, I think, you know, it's you got to look at the effects of all of this misrepresentation of reality. You have perps on the street that don't belong on the street. One in big and large and huge part to the New York City Police Department. It's easy to blame the DAs and it's easy to blame the laws, and you're right to. But how are you not looking at the main perpetrator of why all these repeat violent offenders are out on New York City streets? The main perpetrator of that is the upper echelon of the New York City Police Department, because they're pushing, don't charge him. I know he punched you in the face, but you're not seriously injured, so that's not really an assault on a cop. I know they beat you up, but you're not seriously injured, so that's not really an assault on a cop. Like all of those times they dumbed down. It's not really a burglary. They're friends. It's not really a grand larceny. They're friends. That's not an attempted assault too. That's a reckless endangerment. He was just shooting at a target, shooting at it. He was shooting into a crowd. It's just a reckless endangerment. That's not an attempted assault too. That's not attempted murder. All of these things have an effect, and I don't know why I'm going to acknowledge this, but I'm just going to acknowledge this real quick. So this is for our good friend, Joe. Joe, why didn't you speak up when you were in the department, John? If it's as bad as you claim it be, at least have the balls to advocate for change when you're in the NYPD. Hi, Joe. So in case you don't know, Joe, I guess we've never ran across each other in there, or you just haven't spoke to enough people that know me. Hi, I was the first person in the NYPD to be denied a religious accommodation. The reason I was is because not only did I push back against the vaccine mandate, but I had a long history of pushing back against DEI and all of this bullshit legislation that has came down the pipeline in the last 10 years, right? As far as even going to advocate to city council people, to calling city council people and state assembly, our borough presidents, that in boroughs I didn't even live in. So there was a very good reason that I was targeted, and I was the first person that was put their feet to the fire where I had 7 days or I was going to get terminated. Because not only was I the first person that was denied a religious accommodation, I was also the first person denied an appeal. And then they changed the whole scenario. So I was like, wait, they changed the entire scenario for everybody else. So I actually never even got the same type of due process that most people got. And the reason I didn't get that is because I always had a big mouth and I was always pretty influential because I always knew a lot of people even prior to being on social media. So they basically chopped my head off. That's why I'm here doing this podcast. All of the stuff I talk about here didn't just start the day I left the New York City Police Department. And if you think that, you're probably dumber than you even look right now, because all of this stuff I've been talking about probably going on now about 15 years, maybe even a little longer. So yeah, Joe. So that's for that. But before we switch over to Marlon, let's go to a word from our sponsors over at Calci. Great organization, and we thank them for being our partners. So we make predictions every single day about pop culture, the economy, and the biggest storylines making headlines. Calci is America's #1 predictions market platform. It lets you trade those predictions in a live market. Here's a good one for you. Will the Odyssey, I know Marlon's a fan favorite of this one, and there's a lot of talk about this Odyssey. I still didn't go to see it, but I do want to go see it. Will the Odyssey win the Oscar for Best Picture? Right now, the Odyssey winning the Oscar for Best Picture is currently trading at 49%, meaning a $200 trade would pay out $394. On Calci, you're trading against your peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Calci app and use code FINEST to get up to $500 in bonus credits when you trade 25. KALSHI, Calci. Trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see calci.com/regulatory. And for those of you that want, and those of you that are interested, you could put your phone right up to that QR code in the camera, and it'll bring you right in on our link, and you'll get access to that 500 in bonus credits. So appreciate that. But yeah, Marlon, what do you got on that, brother?
Yeah, I might have to go in that bet. I do think they will.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think. Yeah, I think they will, just based on all this stuff. And I saw a lot of sponsored posts saying that Odyssey was the best picture ever from conservative influencers, and they were literally sponsored, meaning they were paid to say it. So yeah, I think that's a pretty solid one. I'm not. This is an investment advice platform though, but just opinions.
Is it now a DEI Oscar? Because it sure seems like it.
I want to
Odyssey, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I got to go see it, but I watched a lot of reviews on it after Marlon spoke about it, and I could see why people were annoyed with it. And especially as someone who's read the Odyssey, and I actually read a condensed version to my kids too when they were younger. I could see why people are annoyed with it.
Yeah, I like the old theme of it where they say, I don't want to say the word, it's such a bad word. CUNT hair could pull 1,000 ships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Marlon.
Yeah, Mike. I saw Mikey. Yes, I did mention that earlier, Mike. If you're now tuning in, yeah, why didn't they? You know, the Bronx especially has a problem when you get these large groups of kids together. But again, we've seen that all over the city. We saw it at the post-Knicks game. You know, we saw it at a parade, and we're seeing it over and over again. When you have these these large groups of youth gathered, it's going to be a problem. So you better have cops there. And again, if the Summer of Love wasn't that long ago, right? Right. Everybody remembers that, right? Nobody wants to see youth rioting and looting, right? Right. I think the job has kind of forgotten that, and I'm gonna say we're not too far off from some of this disorder devolving into riots or potential looting itself. You know, so I think the job needs to be more prepared for incidents like this. I don't know if it's I kind of wonder if they see the overtime budget breaking and they figured, you know what, let's see if we could hold back some cops on here because you know, we're already crushing that overtime budget. But whatever it is, they got to be wiser because these incidents are only going to keep happening more and more unless the job and the city starts to speak up and starts to correct all the problems that we point out on the show. Okay. And the problems don't just start with the job itself and the training and the quality of cops that we're getting in, but it's also with the laws that handicap police from being police, like the diaphragm law and all that BS. Unless people at 1PP, including the unions, start speaking up for that, then you better start sending a whole lot more cops to these details, okay? Because this is a problem that's not going to get solved on its own.
I just want to have a little fun for a second and address this. So, Black Ninja 9653, what's up, brother? He says, Eric, what is up with your voice? You using AI today or something? Actually, you should have heard my voice about a month ago. I was on the phone with John too and Marlon. When I just had surgery, I sound like a sex phone operator. But yeah, I just had neck surgery and they actually cut through the front. They had to move everything, including my voice box. So still a lot of swelling. It should heal. And it's possible it doesn't completely heal. It may be fine-tuned forever. That's all right. It's just another sign of recovery. So I just thought I'd have a little fun with that. Anyway, you're spot on, brother, Marlon. We talk about the diaphragm law and all these other indicators. Speaking up is not enough. The union saying that, hey, the diaphragm law and all these things, have caused issues with our cops. And we often hear from the unions like, we have another cop shot. We love our brothers and sisters. It needs to stop. Well, what needs to stop? We often say that. And the upper echelon, they say, we love this officer. An officer was killed in the line of duty. That's not enough. Just by speaking up, we need you to actually take action. I'm tired of hearing people say, we need to pack courtrooms. We need to do this. We need to do that. Why don't we actually do something that works? For years, we've heard the same thing from the unions. We need to pack courtrooms. We love our cops. We need to back them. Great. What does that look like? What does it look like when you show support? What does it look like when you back people? How? I mean, we saw the unions have to raise money to help out Sergeant Duran in his legal case. Is that really support? We need to raise money for him. Don't we already have the money there? We actually need to raise money the money that we're already. So I'm tired of hearing the unions have to do this and they have to say this and the upper echelon. I want to see action. Just by saying you're going to do something, it's just not enough for me. Take action. For years, Pat Hendry, it's very simple. Just follow what everyone said before you. We're going to pack courtrooms. We're going to pack courtrooms. That's great. The judges probably look at you in the courtroom and say, look at these stupid cops, because we're going to hit the gavel and it's over. This cop's going to jail. They're just laughing at you. How about we actually fight to create legislation? How about we promote, if the union really cared so much, retire and run for office, and where you can actually change things. But they don't want to retire, leave the job. Why? Because they work 90 minutes a day, if that, and they have a nice meal. I would love to see. Has anyone ever tracked one of these union board members? How many hours a day are they actually in the office? What do they actually do? I would love to shadow them for a day. I want to see what they do. How many steak dinners do they have in one day? I would like to know. Some look like they pretty well. I want to know what they do. On one day we could shadow the union. Maybe they could take us on a ride along. I want to see what they do. Because if they really cared, why aren't union members saying we're going to retire and we're going to run for office because we care? We want to change things for cops. Show me the union member who has done that. I haven't seen it. I want to see that.
Wait, so you think they work 90 minutes a day?
That was a lot.
That's like a 4-hour discussion right there. No? Joe,
90 minutes is the size of a short. It's the length of a short movie. So if they watch a movie in the office,
you consider lunch work. I get it.
Yeah. Quick comment, Nolan. If you want to see the chat scrolling on your screen, you can actually do that on your TV itself. So you don't. I kind of pulled it down because we have a lot on the screen right now. But you can all do that yourself if you go to on your YouTube on your screen, not on the computer, but on a TV screen. You go to settings and you can pull it up so that you'll see the chat on the TV screen as well. So you don't need us to do that, no.
Yeah, but they want to get recorded. We'll get it up there. We'll get it up there. They want that things read out on that at least. Joe, we'll get to you at the end with that. We appreciate the large donation. Appreciate you always being here. We'll definitely do a segment on that because that shit annoys the hell out of me. He's talking about the girl eating the snacks.
Yeah, that's a great discussion.
Was that on Instagram or something?
It's all day long, every day. It's like there's a social media influencer out there. There's actually a few of them. That's all they do. They walk up to girl cops with like roses and candies, and they go pretty viral. They got a pretty big following, but that's all they do. And all these girls do it with them and like eat snacks and drink drinks with them. It's the stupidest shit I ever seen. And everyone that done it should get a command discipline. Literally, I got no hate for the kid because I don't think he's a bad kid or any of them. I just think they're generating content. But when you're at work, you shouldn't have any part in that. It's like it's stupid. It's stupid.
Yeah.
You know,
that's Joe Mango. Thank you for the coffee donuts, but that's a great conversation. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, unbelievable. Other thing when we talk about the Bronx, Vanessa Gibson, right? Like her Althea Stevens. I don't know if you know. Do you guys know Black Girl Magic? City Councilwoman Althea Stevens. You know, because they got Black Girl Magic Day at City Council, and that is her Instagram handle, Black Girl Magic. So her, Althea Stevens, who's a city council member and is also the chair of City Council's Committee on Children and Youth. She is the main voice behind abolishing the NYPD's gang database. You know why? Because it's racist. You know, it's racist because, you know, they have all the people in there that are in gangs. And of course, the Fort Hamilton Army Base's own New York City public advocate, Jamani Williams, they are calling for a comprehensive youth safety plan following the tragic death. They say death. I say murder of a 12-year-old in District 16. They're talking about the NYPD, retired NYPD squad sergeant's son. Vanessa Gibson put out this statement. Our borough mourns the loss of 12-year-old Jacob Freitas, a young boy loved by family, neighbors, and school and community in Mount Eden. This unimaginable pain and tragedy has devastated his family, and we are standing with them in pain and sorrow, holding this family close in our hearts. Our children deserve safe streets, free from evilness and those who carry illegal weapons, and use them with no regard for human life. This violence is unacceptable and disgusting and must be met with action, attention, and urgency now. Enough has been enough. We are heartbroken. We are outraged and deeply sad that the act of senseless violence has taken Jacob from his family and friends. Our communities deserve better. The work must continue, she says. So you heard it. It's the same garbage from all these people who do nothing but want to lower the amount of people in prisons, that don't want people carrying illegal firearms prosecuted. The same people that want the NYPD defunded, emasculated, and understaffed, and want to move to a more community-based style policing, cops without guns, or basically just giving money to former jailbirds to stand around after people get shot and wear taxpayer-funded jackets, hats, and T-shirts. And so this was the statement they put out, and this was what infuriated me when I read. Because not only are they full of shit, and part of the reason that that tragedy even happened is because of them and all of the policies that they've helped implement and put in place over the years. But here's the part of the statement. I'm not going to read the whole thing, just this one part. This terrible incident underscores the urgent need for a public safety plan to address persistent gun violence that continues to impact our youth. However, we must recognize that youth safety cannot be achieved solely through enforcement. So it's not the police that we want. What we want to do, it requires sustained investment in our young people, safe public spaces. How do we get that without the police? I don't know. How do we get that without enforcement? I don't know. How do we get that without prosecution? I don't know. It requires sustained investment in our young people, safe public spaces, violence prevention initiatives, and community-based solutions that address the root causes of violence before it occurs. So I just got a question for all you cops that were out there and all you civilians that were out there at the Dominican Day Parade. Did anybody see any representatives from the Department of Community Safety? $268 million, a two-person staff. They weren't there. They did nothing to prevent gun violence that day during the Dominican Day Parade. They weren't out on Bronx streets that day when over 5 people were shot and this young boy was murdered. Where were they then? The violence interventions, though, they did do what their now new function is. Their new function actually isn't intervening before violence happens. What their new function is now is they show up. A bunch of old jailbirds show up that some of them are still involved in criminality. Some of them are still selling drugs, dealing guns, and shooting people on New York City streets. So we send them there, and they get paid a pretty hefty salary to, after people like this young boy, when they're murdered, and they did it this day, they show up and they stand on the corner in the background with their taxpayer-funded jackets, hats, and T-shirts, and then they hold a vigil. And then they hold a press conference the next day and say, this has to stop, this has to stop, this has to stop. And the only thing that our elected officials can come up with to do that is to give more money to organizations that have zero metrics for success. And when we look at them, they've done absolutely nothing to curtail gun violence. They've actually furthered it. So, you know, this is the state of policing across America. Don't think this is sold to the Bronx. This is every borough across New York City, including the Republicans, all push this same bullshit and this same line of bullshit that goes out. And this is what's occurring in every Democratic-controlled state and city across the country. That same bullshit. We don't need the police. We don't need enforcement. We don't need prosecution. We don't need to put certain people in jail. We need to put more money towards all of these things that do absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Keep in mind, Vanessa had 56 million for her, her capital budget. Allocated 56.3 million in discretionary capital funds. I wonder where all those capital funds were allocated. How much of the capital funds were sent to give people their crumbs, and how many of it went to something productive towards helping the Bronx? It's these people's solution is always to throw more money at it, and that doesn't really solve the problem. These Democrats and progressives, the idea is to keep throwing money at it and not actually, and that money doesn't actually solve anything. I wonder if she thinks there's a magical money tree at City Hall that produces all this money. Does she realize that the city's in a budget crunch, and the longer that budget crunch continues, is the less money she'll actually get for these communities? It's these people don't think, and also think of it. If you have an image of New York City being a dangerous place, right? You're losing tourist revenue. And tourist revenue, right, is some of that revenue goes into a lot of these programs, these boondoggle programs that she wants. So, as that image gets perpetuated, you're going to lose even more money for your boondoggle programs. So this goes back to why you need safety. Safety is the bottom line to prosperity in your city. If your city isn't safe, then your city is destined to lose residents, lose businesses, and eventually lose revenue. And the same revenue that you keep begging for, that you're never going to put to productive usage, right? The same revenue you keep asking for, there's going to be less of it.
I think this is the comment of the day. Mike Marino, what's up, brother? Says Eric, come on. You and me go out. I bet we get more than 16 guns plus collars and only God knows how many CCRBs. We can break records. I would hope we could get that many guns, but we're definitely getting 16 CCRBs. There's no doubt about it. So, I just want to say, to me, the Dominican Day Parade looks like savages in the wild. Like, you have to ask yourself, do you want to, you want to talk about being safe? We all, like, when you bring your kids somewhere for the day, you take them to the zoo, right? You don't take them to the wild. And to me, that just looks like the wild. Like, we're not, the NYPD is not in control anymore. Like, the savages should be in captivity. And there are a lot of people there that probably wanted to go there and have a good time and have good intentions. I'll tell you right now, thank God, most people in this world are actually pretty good. I mean, I worked in the South Bronx, and it was extreme amount of violence. But most of the residents there are actually pretty damn good. I mean, thank God they are. But for us, in policing, our world is small, right? We only deal with the violent perpetrators, right? We deal with good people, but most of the day is trying to find those perpetrators, at least as if you're doing your job. So I say to people in Marlon, you talk about people, safety is important because they want to come to the city. They want to come to a safe place. Here's the reality. Do you want to go to the zoo or do you want to go to the jungle? Do you want to go to the wild? I mean, if I told you, somebody, listen, I'm taking you out right now in the wild and there's lions and tigers out there. You want to go? Or you want to go to the zoo where you could watch and see from a safe distance? People want to go to the zoo. They want to watch the parade. They want to people watch. People love people watch, but they want to be safe. They want to watch people act out and do funny things, but they want to be safe. That's the reality. It's just simple. It's just simple math. But the city is out of control. And yeah, Mike, me and you would go out and probably get like 25, 30 guns. It's no joke. And the guns are easier to get right now. And it's not taking away anything from the cops. I saw it. I saw it with my own eyes. And that was 4 years ago in September 2022. In comparison now, which is even worse. I saw it. I said, holy shit, I couldn't believe it. My guys and I were talking like, oh my God. Like literally, the guns are just falling out of people's pockets. It's getting too easy. It's scary. Scary how easy it was getting. So the reality is, yeah, it is easier. It's not, doesn't take away from the danger, but it's easier because crime is out of control. And that's why I said, let's go back to those perpetrators. What's actually documented? And that's a great point. John, you said it earlier, and I experienced it in my CCRB cases. What charges are actually being met in the DA's office? Someone gets locked up with a gun. How far is that case actually going before it gets dismissed? Is it actually getting drawn up as an arrest? In most cases, I bet you it's not. The DA's office right now is completely anti-cop. And I saw it myself in CCRB, in a case that was found not guilty and I won. But the perpetrator was arrested 30-something times. 27 of them were felonies. Felonies. But you know how many convictions my perpetrator had? 2. 2 convictions. One was for discon and one was for a misdemeanor assault. 2 convictions. So in CCRB, when you go to trial, the administrative trial with the job, the only cases that you could reference to show character assessment is the convictions. And here's the irony of that, right? When you're a cop and you're police and you have an encounter with a potential perpetrator or an actual perpetrator, you don't stop that person and create your tactics based on their conviction rate. You stop them based on their history, on their arrest history. This person was arrested 20-something times, accused of rendering a lieutenant unconscious, accused of knocking out another person, accused of shooting someone through a door. But they had 2 convictions. And that was my hurdle at my CCRB case, is explaining how violent this perpetrator is when they only have 2 convictions. So, John, to your point, spot on, brother.
Wait,
no, yeah,
before you go down,
I'm shocked to even have that. That's like he's like a unicorn with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's up? What do you want, Mom?
No, I just want to bring. I found this right. 63% of her budget went to education. $35 million. Why that's interesting? Well, it's interesting because there's a massive hole that there's a $13 billion involved $13 billion of NYC education contracts that is completely unaccounted for. Nobody, there's no that Mamdani is currently stonewalling any scrutiny of that, So Harriet here it is that she keeps asking for more money, and that $35 million. Is anybody really scrutinizing all of that? Yeah,
35 million.
yeah. So, and
Hey,
also,
Yeah, well, sorry.
Juju says, he says, Marlon, please tell us why tourism numbers are up even before the World Cup. That's incorrect, Juju. Tourism. So you all know we talked about this a couple episodes ago. Tourism numbers are at 2019 levels. Okay, it's not up. Okay, technically, what happened is after 2020, the numbers plummeted so much, right, that we are only now getting back to what they were before, and also the revenue from tourism. I haven't seen any of those numbers that adjust for inflation. You've had more than 30% inflation since 2019. So are they accounting for inflation, Juju? So
Hey, I just want to address this comment. I think this is a great comment. Billy Blastoff, he definitely did real police work. He says, Eric, how many times did you get a gunman with 2 illegal guns on him? Happened twice, to be both times Smith revolvers. And when I asked them both, they said the revolvers don't jam. It happened to me twice also, but I would say one is not really them carrying 2 guns. So one time was a perpetrator that did have 2 firearms, and one was like one of those little derringes that you could just remember those little derringes they could just put in their pocket. It was like 2 or 3 shots. It was so small you barely hold in your hand. And then the other time was actually a female, and she had 2 guns in her pocketbook, but she was holding it for the guys. That was only in all the gun arrests, just 2 times, just like that. And speaking of that girl wouldn't give it up. I tell you, man, Marlon, from Intel, debriefing perps, there's nothing like the debriefing female perpetrators when they're holding guns for their men. They wouldn't give it up. That's one thing I learned. The women didn't give it up. Anyway, that's my little tangent.
Yeah. What the hell was I gonna say? Oh, all right. So someone on here said that I think it was Seth Gillum. Welcome to the show. I've never seen you before. He said that 35,000, that's huge, because in 98 we had 42,000. We don't believe the numbers are 35,000. That's what the NYPD is telling us. We think the numbers are much closer to 25,000. And then when we talk about who's actually capable of being out there on patrol in a patrol function, we think those numbers are closer to 15,000. So it's huge numbers. What just happened in LA should be a wake-up call, because I think you're going to start to see this. I don't think you're going to see this in New York right away, but I think you will see this at some point, where you're going to have police departments actually begin to tell the truth now. This is LA County. This is LA's chief, excuse me, not county sheriff. This is LA's chief, Jim McDonnell, I believe his name is. He finally admits that the LAPD is down 4,000 cops, and they need cops, and they're completely understaffed, and they can no longer manage the workload they had. And believe me, this is coming for the NYPD, whether it's a year from now, whether it's 2 years from now, or in the next mayoral administration, it's going to come, because eventually the reality outweighs the lies that they're trying to hold up. They're trying to sway your perception on. And I think it's only a matter of time before we see this. People are like, oh, yeah, shout out to him. I'm saying absolutely not. I'm saying you were a coward. You knew what was going on for years. And if he's telling you that they need 4,000 cops, they probably need 8,000. So it's whatever he admitted to, it's probably much, much worse than what he's admitting to. I'm actually definitely going to consult with some people in LA, find out exactly what's going on there, because if it's out in the headlines, it's definitely much worse than what they're saying. And again, same thing is occurring in LA. They're at historic lows, crimes down. How? It doesn't make sense. You see the crimes coming out of there as well. You see the street takeovers occurring there as well. You see the police officers being assaulted there as well. You see all the kids taking over malls over there as well. How? doesn't make sense. And here, this is just another come to Jesus moment where, oh man, like we can't really lie anymore. We got to start telling the truth. But we'll only tell a little bit of it.
You think that's why he's talking now? It's very curious why he's talking now. I wonder if he's worried about his legacy.
No, I think they literally have no choice. I think that the cops they're worried about this really going full blown out in the media, like where it can't be hidden anymore. Because I think their response times are abysmal, like the NYPDs and like the EMSs and like all the. And I think it just the lies. It's just been festering for so many years that now they're like, oh yeah, actually, you know what? We do have a problem. It's like, oh, really? Shocking.
Yeah, I don't think there's when it comes to leadership, I don't think there's amnesty time. We're like, oh, great job, he admitted it. No, your job in leadership is to get in front of something and let the world know that we're hemorrhaging right now and we're losing cops and it's going to hurt us, and get in front of it. Not to say, oh, if this to get to the point you say, hey, we're short 4,000 cops. Well, you waited too long. That's not good leadership. You're supposed to get in front of it. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. For anybody to say, oh, it's amnesty time, and you admitted that you're down by 4,000. Well, why did you finally speak up now? Why didn't you get in front of it and say, we have a problem, we need to fix it before it actually becomes a problem? That's true leadership. That's just another failure.
Yeah, but then you would have had to tell the truth, Eric. And like, he's like,
I didn't know. That's right. We don't do that.
You can't do that in the police department this day, in Democratic controlled police department. Like,
and what the hell is Juju talking about?
You can't do.
Juju, you have no idea what you're talking about. I spent over a year in LA. Juju says the California Post is a conservative tabloid. There is nothing conservative about LA. I was there for over a year, so you have no idea what you're talking about, Juju. Maybe you should stay in your bubble at John Jay College, because you have no idea what you're speaking about.
Yeah.
Maybe Juju had a boyfriend in LA. I don't know.
Yeah. The reason why I asked why now is because my theory that they all took the wrong gamble and they lost. Again, for you guys just catching up, I've come to the conclusion that the cities, these progressive cities, took the gamble that we would be in a different society had the COVID scamdemic went the way they thought it was going to go. And that way is we'd all be getting our boosters every 6 months. You'd be showing your digital papers, please, to go to a restaurant. You'd be your travel would most certainly be limited, because they would have probably need to be scanned, to go certain places, maybe to even leave the city if you wanted to, like in China. You need to get scanned to take the subway out the city, or to travel to another city. So I think they took the gamble that society would have been in a different place right now. You would have been at home. These kids would have been at home, putting on their VR helmet in the metaverse, eating the bugs and owning nothing and being happy. And we'd be in a society that would be dependent on all these data centers. This is why they're obsessed with building it, right? Because you need the data centers to power your digital ID, your digital money, your VR glasses, all this crap. And I think they lost the COVID bet, and there was a pushback, and it failed. Nobody's getting boosters now. Most people believe that it was bullshit. Most people aren't getting the vax anymore. Most people regret having taken the vax. And they took that gamble, and now we're getting to the point where they have to admit to themselves, damn, we fucked up. Okay. They don't want to tell it openly yet, but they screwed up. And they screwed up because they pushed all these cops to leave the job, and they pushed the jobs to change to the point of being emasculated and getting docile young kids who you've groomed to be scared of being actual cops. So the reason why I asked why now is because I'm thinking if we're coming to that come to Jesus moment where they realize, damn, we got to do something about this now, where we don't have the cops. We're getting overwhelmed at these street takeovers. We're getting overwhelmed with these feral youth taking over. And I can't be silent anymore, especially if I want to preserve my legacy.
I don't think it's that at all, dude.
Yeah.
They've just been lying for dude. This is 15 years in the making of criminal justice reform. Of we don't need cops, we don't need enforcement. We just need public spaces for youth that are safe. We need evidence-based public safety strategies. This is just the fact that Democrats have taken control of this country in every major city, and it's all a result of our media controlling the narrative. You know, your favorite conservative a radio station or media outlet is actually a liberal controlled organization that's been feeding you garbage, pushing you garbage candidates. Most Republicans in office are far left Democrats. They just have a Republican in front of their name and they pander to you on issues, but they do nothing about it. They play patty cake. They sit there all hanging out with Mondani, eating bread, hanging out with all the socialists. So I don't think it's a big gamble that they lost on COVID. I think they've been lying for years and years and years, and that's it. It's only a matter of time where you're either going to lose control of all your cities and you're going to start getting strung up on light poles, or you're going to start to do something about it. It's that simple. We're getting to a breaking point in this country, and that's what it is. Like the lies just get too big. And so this police chief did not have a come to Jesus moment. That mayor said, all right, you could go out and you could say this. And because if he didn't, he would have been fired the next day. So that's all.
Here's my take. I mean, Marlon, I think there is some prudence to what you're saying, but I don't think that it was a failure. I think on the Democratic side of things, I think it's actually a success. How did they succeed? They succeeded by, to me, it was a test. I don't think they give a shit if you take the booster or not right now. I think it was a test to see if we could be compliant. And that is why Zohran Mamdani, when he was interviewed on the Finest Unfiltered, said he would not take Marlon Bethel back because you were not compliant. And that's the whole point behind this. I think they, in my perception, my point of view is that the Democratic Party actually succeeded because they proved that people will be compliant, and they also proved if they want to create chaos and change an agenda, just find the next George Floyd, which is what they do. They find the next George Floyd and they create chaos and they move the needle and change the agenda. So ultimately, I think it was actually a success, because if it was a test, which I think it was, we all failed. We were all compliant in some way, shape, or form. Yes, most of us pushed back in some form, but I think initially we all were compliant somehow because it was just shock, right? It was ultimate shock to us. So I do think it was a success on their part. I hate to say it. I think there is some prudence to what you're saying, Marlon, but I think ultimately at the general scale of things, it was a success, and they proved we're compliant and that they can ultimately have the general population follow suit. And that's what's happening. And I think that's scary, because the reality is, I read somewhere, and I can't find it, that only 2% of people speak out. I think it was, maybe I got it from Ordinary Men or somewhere, just as we saw during the Nazis, that most people don't speak out. And you don't even need pressure or fear of death or going to jail. You just need the peer pressure for people to actually follow suit. And that's the reality. And we saw it with the NYPD, the vaccine mandate. And going further, right now at this point, we all agree that if the NYPD was going to have another mandate, no matter what it is, most people will follow suit. And I think that the reality is, ultimately for me, I think it's a success.
I think and I've said this before, all that stuff we got in the 20 teens with the BLM, the George Floyd, all that stuff was leading to the scandemic, right? The scandemic, the reason why they want to change society is goes back to the debt, because after 2008, they basically saved the economy, but they saved it temporarily, and they knew that at some point they have to change things completely, otherwise the economy is going to collapse. And that progressivism that we got in the 20 teens was to weaken society, weaken people's willpower, and so that when 2020 came around, you'd be in a weakened state and be willing to take the shot and to not notice all the changes in society. I've said before, progressivism is just a cover for austerity measures and lowered standards in society. And the left, the progressives, are useful idiots, but the right is also involved in it too. The difference is the right are connected to the corporatists and the oligarchs who want this, and the left are ideologues who are useful idiots who think that they're getting a society, a socialist society, when in reality you're getting neo-feudalism and corporate socialism. But the only way we can get in those measures is via manipulating people's empathy, which is where progressivism comes in. I think all that stuff was to prepare us for 2020. And I think again that they lost the gamble, and we're coming to a point where they're gonna have to do something. It's you look at the economy is losing, right? There's war overseas in the Middle East. It's going on. There's no victory there. There's no victory in Ukraine. There's no. It's my whole point is that the future that they wanted to happen was going to be able to fund all the was going to be able to fund all the budget gaps in the city, was going to be able to fund all the services that they cut, right? But the problem is it didn't happen the way they wanted to, and now they have no funding for all these things, and that no funding for all these problems that they let in the door. So what are they going to do now? They have no choice but for that come to Jesus moment to occur, and for them to realize, damn, we gotta change course and go get back to reality. So,
John, before you go, I just want to say this. This is where I agree with you, right? I think that the actual test of COVID itself was a success to test compliance. And I think the reality is we all are saying, yeah, we fought back. I think we did, but we have to admit that every one of us was hit by shock and awe, and somehow we were compliant for a moment in time.
Yeah, but Eric, compliance for what? It's compliance so that you'd be okay with this new society that they were bringing in.
Right.
This new society.
This is the part where I agree with you. I think that they were so progressive and still also progressive that it's become regressive. And what is regressive? It means you're going backwards. So that's where I agree with you. I think they pushed the needle so much that they actually caused it to be regressive and go backwards in time. So that's where I agree with you.
Look. So, you know, Marlon, like you're always with these big master plans, and you took us honestly like totally off course. But like, I don't agree with you at all, dude. I think this is the natural progression of governments. This is what happens. This fight that's occurring right now has been happening since 1776, dude. It was happening prior to 1776. It's happening currently in 1776. What happens is you have governments that want to continue to expand that power. We were founded on individual liberty. And since that moment in time, when Ben Franklin came out and he said, I'm handing you a republic if you can keep it. And this has been the fight since 1776, is you have people, because they want to benefit themselves, they want to enrich themselves, they want to have less work, they want to make their jobs easier. What we've been moving towards is what governments always move towards. They move towards communism. They move towards fascism. They move towards top-down control. This is what this is. 100% COVID was without a doubt, a humiliation ritual. It was a humiliation ritual to get the faithful away from God. That's what it was. It was to diminish you. What is the majority faith in New York and across this country? It's Catholicism. It's Christianity. They move that out because what do totalitarian governments do? They outlaw faith. Why do they outlaw faith? Because when they outlaw faith, who's going to rebel? If you believe that government is your higher power and there is not something beyond government, then you are going to be compliant. You know, and that's what it is. Christians are rebels traditionally through history. When you look at Muslim countries, they're compliant. That's it. When you look at the Jewish faith, they are compliant. They are looked at as compliant by government. You see what Israel did to the Jewish state. You see what they did. It was literally, it resembled 1930s Germany during COVID. I was like, I can't believe what the hell they're doing. I cannot believe what the hell Israel's doing. Never forget. You must have forgot. You know, and so when I look at that, like, I'm like, this isn't part of some master plan, and these people aren't masterminds. The people in charge of this country are morons, dude. They're absolute morons. Yeah. And did they probably have some plans along the line that they failed on? Yeah. But overall, they're just a bunch of corrupt tyrants that don't want anybody looking at them. They don't want to go to jail, and they want to enrich themselves and their generations and legacy build. And that's all it is. Like, this fight is as old as time, dude. I don't think this started in 2008, bro.
Well, there's always a battle to keep society on a track, you know. But I'm just trying to explain the last 15 years of what's happening, especially in police departments. Because think of it. Why a lot of the same people complaining about, that chief was there on the job when cops were being forced out. when the LAPDs was getting woked up too, and when cops were leaving, he knew all the veterans were leaving, and he knew their attrition rate, what it was. So if you knew this was going to be a problem, I mean, you're complaining about a problem when you were there seeing when the problem was happening too. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Why would you cut off your I said it before. It doesn't make sense if you're a general that you're going to lose people, and later on you're going to complain about the fact that you're short of people. I mean,
but they're not generals, dude. They're not generals.
Yeah,
they're fucking cowards. They're water boys. They're like, go get my water. Okay, whatever you need, whatever you want. Oh, you want me to stick my mother in a gas chamber? Oh, okay. Oh, you want me to hold my daughter down and stick a vaccine arm? Oh, okay. Like these people aren't leaders. And when you look at it, dude, just go back to 2008. Go back to what Barack Obama said. Who's the most dangerous people in this country? Retired military, retired cops. Why?
Yeah.
Because they believe in the Constitution of the United States. Most of them are faithful people, and they stand for something, and they're not afraid to die. They believe in a higher power other than government. Meanwhile, we were the epitome of government servants, yet we're going to be considered the most dangerous people in the world. Now you have police departments across the country that are bigger than sitting armies across the world. If you weaken them, you could bring in communism very easily. You cannot bring in communism with a strong police department. You could not have brought it in 2003, and 2002, and 2004. You could bring it in 2026. You could bring it in post all of these things. This is a fight. How do you have a systemically corrupt government and a competent law enforcement agency? You can't. Because they would all be in jail. Eric Adams, all of his cronies, all the heads of the DOE, they'd all be in jail. Anybody in the police department that was involved in corruption would all be in jail. Instead, they're all getting fat pensions, sitting back, getting their cock sucked somewhere across the like it's having hookers, and they're probably with 14-year-old hookers in the Dominican Republic or everywhere else across this country. The only reason that's happening is because there is no competent law enforcement structure any longer. They've emasculated it all, and it's all in a way to bring tyranny here. And that's what's been happening since 1776. It's going to continue to happen, and we're losing the fucking fight because we don't have an informed population that understands civics, that understands politics, and we've been blinded. And the majority of us, unfortunately, I hate to say it, have already succeeded in passing our test for the humiliation ritual, and we no longer put God first, and we put the government ahead of God. Most of us think our God is in Washington, D.C., or in city council, or in city hall. Like, that's just what the hell it is as today. We're an emasculated society.
That's why I think it's funny. That's why the other day I sent Marlon and John, we have a thread amongst all the Finest Unfiltered, and there's a girl who's on social media. I don't know if it's AI or not, or if she's real, but just a hot young chick, with a low cut top, and she always talks about government and politics, and she shows her feet. And there's people like a total foot fetish. But what she says in that is, and I sent this video because it's kind of funny, right? It's this hot chick, and people focus on her feet, but what she talks about is politics. So people actually watch it because she's hot, or they actually want to listen to the politics. So it's pretty funny. But what she says is, basically, the Democratic Party has always been a party of chaos. And she talks about how they lost the Civil War, they created the KKK, how they've always been a party of chaos, stemming from 1776 till present day. So the Democratic Party, I think, has always been a party to actually move the needle, create chaos in this country, especially now. We see it more than ever. But now we move to this democratic socialism. And I do think that COVID was a test. And ultimately, I think they succeeded. They succeed because we know right now, we can all envision. And that's why I think when we did that episode with Tim Pool, and he says, are the NYPD communists? It was kind of like spot on. Because the reality is, if the NYPD right now, the upper echelon, came out with some type of mandate and said that we're going to go into everyone's home and make sure the air conditioning is on at 78 and not lower than that, guess what? The cops are doing it. They're going to go into people's houses and just start locking people up because their house is on 72. So, yeah, I do think that they show that compliance is the key. And I do think that's a major factor. And yes, I talk about the party being so progressive that it's become regressive and they've gone backwards. But in some ways, going backwards in time and living like it's old caveman times has actually worked in their favor. So, Marlon, I love you, brother. You took us down this rabbit hole. But since we're down this rabbit hole, I think that, and we've showed you, right, on numerous episodes where cops in Britain and even cops, I forgot what state it was. John, was it Texas maybe? Where cops went to people's homes to actually question them about their social media posts? That's
that was Florida. That was
Florida,
the free state of Florida.
Exactly. Surprisingly, all about compliance. And so the reality is, Marlon, do you think, and I know you know the answer, but let's be honest, if Zohran Mamdani says tomorrow, you know what? We really need the air conditions on at 78. We're going to have the police go into these homes. You think Jessica Tisch will say we're not doing that? You think Scott Moreau will say we're not doing that? Or you think Sector Adam is going to someone's house like, hey, your house is on 72. And next time, if we catch you next time, you get the summons or you get locked up. Do you think that's not going to happen?
Well, I'm not talking about the police. We know the police are Stockholm. The cops have Stockholm syndrome right now. But I think you both are agreeing with me. You know that, right?
No, I'm just saying.
I just think
like you're honing in on 2008, and I'm saying that it's a larger problem. You know what I mean? And I don't think that these people are as smart as you think they are. I think that they're just corrupt tyrants that only care about enriching themselves. I don't think they might have big plans, but they're not smart plans.
Well, you know, Mamdani, Adams, the guys that you see in the front are morons. The real people behind with the brains are people like Alex Cronin, right? In the NYPD, we talked about it.
And I don't think that they're smart
behind the scenes.
And I don't think that they're smart either.
Dean Fullahan, lifelong administrators who know how to work government.
Name anybody you want, Bill Gates, whatever. I don't think that they're smart either. I don't. Just because they made a lot of money doesn't mean anything to me.
No, there was a front man. The people that the smart ones are the ones you never hear about. But the reason why I said you both are agreeing with me, because I'm simply saying that 2020 was the dividing line. Okay? 2020 is when, after all these years of pushing us towards socialism, 2020 was the line where it was time to put the plan into action. Okay, so if we've been battling this since this republic was started, that 2020 was the line where it was go time to shift us over into.
And you don't think it worked? Well, you don't think the plan worked?
I don't think it worked.
How come you're not law enforcement anymore? How come John's not? How come I'm not? I think the plan worked.
I think the plan worked perfectly.
Well, that's temporary.
I think the plan worked perfectly, dude. You got lifelong New York City residents out of New York. Dude, you could talk to anybody 6 years ago and ask them if they ever leave in New York, and they'll say no. And you talk to a ton of them, and they're all gone, or they want out, or they're on their way out. The plan worked beautifully, dude. Staten Island, Staten Island, if I took a video of Staten Island 6 years ago compared to today, it looks like a different place. It looks like a totally different place, dude. The plan worked perfectly. That's a sign
they're losing, John. That's a sign they're losing. Because if you leave, that's what they don't want you to do. You leave, you're taking your money, you're taking your economic output to someplace else, and that's what they don't want. They don't want you to notice things. They win when they don't. When you are the boiling frog in a pot that don't.
I think they want the right
in New York right now. I'd be running for office. I'd be causing chaos at every step of the way. Every time I got bored, I'd be hosting another protest. They absolutely don't want. They wanted people like me out of New York. They wanted strong community. Like they talk about all this diversity bullshit. It's all bullshit because New York actually was a diverse, multicultural environment at one point. You had a Little Italy, a real one. You had a Chinatown, a real one. You had all of these little enclaves. You had Little Africa, a real one. You had all of these communities that lived within blocks of each other, but in their little enclaves themselves, they had their own strong communities. And I always say it. Go back to Bensonhurst in 1980 and go tell those guys to stick a vaccine in their body. Go tell them to mask their children and send their children to school. You would see an uprising. Go to Bed-Stuy in the 1980s and tell those guys to wear a mask and their kids to wear a mask and stick things in their body. You would see an uprising. Go to any neighborhood you want. The Irish. Go to any of those neighborhoods. They would have took over New York. They would have folded the mandate in 2 minutes. Go to those cops then that lived in those environments and those enclaves that had thousands of people behind them. We're not doing that. You're not teaching our kids this shit. That mandate never happens. The reason they got rid of us is to weaken it further and further and further. Instead of diversity, you have compliant populations now. That's it. You know, I look. No offense to the Chinese, they're a compliant population. They bow down to government. I mean, it is what it is. No offense to them, but it is what it is. The truth. That's why they want them there. They want a compliant population there. It's replacement theory, dude. It's total replacement theory.
Marlon, ultimately, I think it's a great discussion. I think you bring up some great points. I think ultimately we kind of are. This is where the rubber meets the road. I think we are saying the same thing in some different ways. I mean, I think that plan worked. It was success, but I think I don't want to speak for you, but I think what you're saying is that they wanted the plan to just completely go in action and things just to change over at that moment. And I think you may be right. I think it was more of a test to see, because ultimately when you have a plan, you're supposed to have a plan B. So what's the plan B then? Do you think there's a plan B? Because I think that might be a deeper conversation. And ultimately the plan, I think there is a plan B. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say the plan B is happening now. And that's a longer discussion. But look at all the bills that are being tried to pass in Congress and ask yourself, how many of those bills actually benefit the American people? I think those bills are just new ways to go around how this scandemic failed. And they're still trying to push it individually now. But they're going to fail as well.
I think the plan B is AI and robotics. That's what I think the plan B is. That's how
that was plan A. That was supposed to be part of it.
Yeah, well, yes, but I think plan A was more to eradicate law enforcement as a whole and to have people compliant. I think plan B is AI, no matter what, that AI and robotics was part of the plan. But I think that's just going to be plan B is to settle on AI and robotics. And I think we're already moving there. I really do.
I think you guys are way off on this, dude. I think everything that you guys see, it's just what's always happened. They introduce something, it's radical. You're like, oh my God, they're gonna force me to do this. They're gonna force me to do this. Everybody complies. They back off the compliance. Now you emasculated all these people. You broke them. They've been part of the humiliation ritual. Guess what? A few years down the road, what do? They introduce it. No one says a fucking word about it. They do it again. It's with every piece of legislation. Oh, we're going to defund the police. Oh, you're going to defund the police? It's crazy. Now they defund the police every year and nobody says a word about it. Oh, you're going to get rid of less cops? You want less cops? It was radical 10 years ago. Now they do it every day. Nobody says a word about it. Oh, you're going to give jailbirds hundreds of thousands of dollars and they're going to replace cops? And it was radical. Then, we're only going to give them $8 million. Now you're giving them about $800 million. And no one's saying a word. That's what they do. They introduce it. It rises up. Everybody gets mad. Everybody breaks because we have an uninformed population that does not vote, that does not take care, that does not know civics, that does not know anything about the founding of this country. And they did that through mass immigration. And they did this through dumbing down the education system. And they did this through taking control of our entire media. And what they're trying to do is turn America into a communist state. And yes, the Republicans are just as fucking guilty of it. Someone said here, oh, Fauci should have been in jail 6 years ago. This whole thing is a show trial. Nothing's happening to Anthony Fauci. No, he's got $1 million a year of retirement. Nothing's happening to him. He's just a poster boy for you're going to throw shit at the wall. And guess what? Nothing's going to stick. It's all bullshit, dude. It's all bullshit. We're headed towards tyranny, however you wrap it up. There is no fascism. It's communism, fascism. We're all moving to the left. Everything has moved to the left. The Republican Party is so far left. They're unrecognizable. The Democratic Party does no longer exist. They are the Communist Party of America. It's not hard.
Sorry, Marlon. No, that part I agree. I think the Democratic Party, as I said before, throughout our history, and if you watch the girl with the low top cotton and sexy feet, she talks about the timeline of the Democratic Party. And that's where I think the pinnacle moment is now, where it's changed. This generation is now changed into complete socialism. And I think it's unrecognizable. And I think that ultimately they succeeded. I think we're all saying the same thing. It's just different elements of it. And then ultimately they did win. John, you're no longer a New York resident. Neither am I. Marlon, you're still there. And I mean, even some people in the chat kind of allude to it also, Marlon. They make some racist comments. I've heard someone said you're the token and, Marlon, your ideas are off base because you're black. You're supposed to follow you have not followed the template, Marlon. I think you didn't get the memo that you're black and you're supposed to be oppressed and you're supposed to follow a specific path and you're supposed to be anti-gang data, NYPD gang database. So when you have a chance, Marlon, you got to go back to that book and get the book that how do I act when I'm black? I think you need that one. So, apparently you missed the memo. But that's the sad part. I think that's ultimately part of what they want is that you're supposed to fall in line and be specific. Like, John, you're masculine and conservative. Your ass better move down south. Eric, you're masculine, too masculine for the NYPD. You need to go. Marlon, you don't know that you're black, so you need to go. And I think they ultimately won. They got it. Our friends and listeners here right now, you guys believe in the truth. You don't belong in this society either. You have to live in this bubble and be those cops. Like, wait a minute, but we did a good job. We got 16 guns. We did great. Yeah, and we know that. You did a good job, but that's not good. That's not good. How is that a good story? Hey, we got 16 guns, 16 fucking guns. Holy shit! At one parade. So how how many people could have got killed there? If there's 16 guns at one parade, what's going on a regular basis and just in the hood? What's it like right now for a 14-year-old kid who just wants to go play basketball in the hood? What's a day like for him? Does anybody ever think about that? What's a day like for that kid? You think he gives a shit about democratic socialists? He just wants to, damn, can I be safe today? I live in Patterson I live in Monhaven. And I have to join this gang right now because I can't go walk across the street to Patterson. Ridiculous.
Yeah, I hear you guys, but this is when I see this is losing right now. This is how they lost, right? Now, none of this would have mattered if they had won with the money, but they've lost with the money. And when this increases, this is where the money is going. Money's going south. It's not going where the red is. Okay.
What is it? Describe it. We can't read it. We can't read it, and we got audio listeners. Describe it. What are you showing?
Oh yeah. So for you audio listeners, I'm showing you a map of U.S. migration, domestic migration from 2024 to 2025, and it's showing you that California has lost 229,000 people, 229,777 people. New York has lost 130, rounded out 138,000 people. Numbers are pretty small on this, so I'm sorry if you guys can't. You guys who are watching can't see it. It's very small. But the main points you need to look at is the map showing you the red areas. Red is losing people, and why I'm saying that they're losing is because the red areas are the areas that have controlled America for decades. Decades. It's the coastal elite that conservatives talk about. It's true. It's the coastal elite from places like New York and California. And what's happening now? Those places are being drained of people. Now, again, the reason why I keep bringing up economics and money is because none of this would have mattered if they had won with this pandemic and money had shifted to digital, right? It wouldn't matter. Who cares? We lose 200,000 people. Who cares? We'll just print more digital money. Who cares, right? Problem is they lost, and now, oh shit, we're losing 200K people. We lost 138,000 people. Oh shit, Mamdani, look, this is what happens now. Mamdani has to stonewall, people from auditing the education contracts. Why? Because people are now asking for it, because city council is going to be asking for that more and more themselves because we need money. And Mamdani just ordered the agencies to cut 2.5%, find 2.5% savings for next year. The point is they're running out of money. I'm getting to the point where I don't think voting matters anymore. Okay, because both parties are on the local level. I think voting really matters, right? But on the national, and we're talking a city and state, I'm not sure it matters anymore, right? But what does really matter is when you pick up and you move and you take your money with you, you go live someplace better. That's when they really lose, because eventually they're going to run out of money. Eventually, Detroit ran out of money and got so bad that even Detroit had to wake up. Okay, even they had to sober up, and that's my point here.
Yeah, so I think you're actually showing us a victory map, and you're saying that they lost. That's what I think. Like, look, here's the thing: New York and California are conservative states. The cities are left wing radicals. New York and
They're
California.
run by the cities, though.
Who did they lose? They lost. They lost productive families of
Yes.
faith that are mainly conservative voters. They were going to lose it. But you're shaking your head, yes. But listen to me.
No,
They
you're
were
proving my
going
point, John.
to lose. No, they were going. No, because we're actually saying different things here. We're saying what happened is correct, but what the results of it are two different things. Listen to what I'm saying. You lost conservative, faith-based, productive members. They lost the people they wanted to lose. Those were the right people. That's who they wanted out. Those were the people who were sick of the policies, sick of the defund the police, sick of the crime. Those were the people that were raising up and saying, what the fuck am I paying all this money for? Why am I actually living like an animal when I don't need to? Why do I subject my kids to having to hear shots fired when I don't need to? And those policies were the policies meant to do exactly that. Because are you going to tell someone that has faith that you don't have a God and you have to do everything we tell you and your kid has to do everything that they tell you? Jesus actually doesn't exist and the Pope said so. The Pope said so. You can't have any faith. You don't get your own thing. You don't get entitled to your religious accommodations. Both states moved in lockstep with that legislation. They lost the right people. They wanted to lose that in order to maintain control. That is exactly what they did. There is a replacement theory. They wanted to keep the compliant people. The people, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Crime's bad. What am I supposed to do? There's nothing I could do. I'm getting 2% this year. They want me to stick my kids like a pincushion with all this experimental stuff. Nothing I could do. City's great. Nothing I could do. Yeah, everything's good. Yeah, I duck bullets every day. So what? I got a good pension. I got a good health benefits. I'm not going to leave here. Restaurant's good. Pizza's good here. You know, like that's what they want to do. They brought in all foreigners. The Staten Island is not a sign of loss for the Democratic Party. Staten Island is a sign of actual victory. They took over. They changed the entire makeup of it. You see those families still hanging on, and they're just being pushed further and further out towards New Jersey. And some people are going to Jersey, and they're realizing, like, holy shit, we're actually being pushed out of here too, because it's all the same policies. Because what they're doing is they're taking control of the states that control the national vote. And I do think voting matters. And I think voting nationally matters. What I think the problem is, though, is you don't get enough people to vote that could actually take control of the Republican Party. Just like the Democratic Socialists have taken over the Democratic Party, there needs to be a faction of Republicans that take back from the Uniparty, from the rhinos that take that party back. Whatever you want to call them, Republican conservatives, whatever it is, there needs to be a faction of conservative people that come out and actually vote. Again, Mayor Mondani, he won that election overwhelmingly. That election was abysmal. You have 8 million voters. You get 1 million. You get 1.5 million out. Like, it's disgraceful. It's fucking disgraceful. You know, the people are uneducated and they don't vote. And that's exactly what they want. They control the vote in New York now. They control the vote in California. And guess what? They're going to continue to do it piece by piece until they take back every state. Because the communists, and I'm saying communists, if you're a registered Democrat, I include you in that. I don't give a fuck if you agree with socialism or not. You're part of the fucking problem the last 10 years in this country. You're part of all of it. You're moving us so far into communism. It's not funny. And what's going to happen is, Eric went out west. I went down south. They're coming for us too, and they're going to take it over piece by piece because they're fucking locusts. They destroy states and cities, and then they move to the nice areas, and they take over the politics there because conservative, faith-based people work every day and don't pay attention to politics and don't give a shit. No, just like, oh, whatever. What am I going to do? Nothing I can do. You know, I'll move again until there's no place to move. That's what's happening. We're being pushed towards communism, and your media is involved in it, and they're the biggest perpetrator of it. And 100% the Democratic Party is controlled. The Republicans are weak. They do nothing. They accomplish nothing. And most of them, like I said, are Democrats. You know, it's just sad to say. I mean, look, we've had a Republican-controlled House and Senate. What have they done? What have they done? Seriously, nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Well, hold on a minute, because I agree. I think that Democratic Socialists is taking over. Even you look at Texas. No one would ever thought that so much of Texas has become so blue. I mean, you look at parts of Texas, and there are neighborhoods in Texas that are just completely Muslim. You have Muslim mosques in Texas. Texas is a completely different nomenclature than ever was. It looks completely different. And where Texas was always a red state, except for Austin, Texas, and that state has completely changed. And so I think that you're absolutely right. I think when Marlon talks about voters, it doesn't really matter. I think the lines have been blurred between Democrats and Republicans at this point, and I think economics calls the shots. And I think if we say let's stop following the votes, let's follow the money, we could see where everyone's being directed to, and what it shows everyone could be bought. So the part where I agree with Marlon, and this is where I agree with you, is that the Democrats they counted on John leaving New York, me leaving, blue collar workers, people that really don't have too much an effect on the economics. We're not investors. We're just employees. We're just tax-paying employees. Same thing for you, Marlon. I think they weren't counting on elites actually leaving New York, on big business and small business leaving New York. Figure the taxes would stay in New York. So that's where I agree with you. So I think two things could be true at the same time when it comes to this. But I think ultimately the Democrats still won. Why? Because the Republicans haven't made a distinction that they're a separate party and they want separate things for this country. Because ultimately, follow the money and you follow the path, and that's what I think what this comes down to.
Yeah, I was listening to a kid named Demian. I think he has a YouTube channel where he talks about a lot of culture, from everything from politics to movies to video games, the impact of culture, and the shift from the shift towards the left in culture. And so that got me thinking a lot about this, right? So right now there's a battle it's not just in politics, but it's in culture, right? There's a lot of pushback towards movies, towards music, towards even video games for the Zoomers. They're pushing back because they see the changes that have been taking place in culture, right? And the reason I'm bringing this up is because to point out that, again, there's so much pushback right now that I think the agenda is failing. And again, they didn't care about us leaving, right? They didn't care about you guys leaving, because if they had gotten their way, again, the money doesn't matter. But the money does matter now. And my point is this, they may have gotten New York to be even more bluer, right? But how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it, right? The cities, I've mentioned it a lot of times, the cities needs at least, we're talking at least $6 billion, $16 billion next year. Where are you going to find that money, right? This is Mamdani, like I said, Mamdani trying to find 2% savings now. Good luck with that. Good luck. You're going to be begging Hochul next year for more money. And at a certain point, that's not going to work. You're going to have to wake up, okay? And again, I brought up culture and then this kid Demian, because the pushback in movies and music and all of that is driving a lot of these companies to go broke because they run out of money. And in the same way that these companies are going broke, I'm saying these states are going broke. They gone woke and they're going to go broke. And because they've lost the agenda, and the agenda would have paid for all of this stuff now, and they lost it. And now that people are leaving, including the wealthy, it's going to become a bigger problem. And it's going to be harder to get these states to be as socialist as up here, because in these places, those states are run by the liberal cities. In that New York State is run by the metropolitan area, which is very heavily liberal. And in these states where people have to, people have less, government can't do everything for you. There's a less dependency on government by nature of being in a more rural area. So it's good luck getting these areas to go blue and go socialism. It just doesn't work when you have to do things for yourself.
Well, you know what they're doing in these rural areas, Marlon, is they're putting these data centers. That's why I say AI and robotics, putting the data centers in rural areas gives them an eye on these rural areas also, because you have to, and also with the solar farms. I think that's another thing to look at. The solar farms, in the data centers. They're putting all these rural areas right now. You have to ask yourself why, because I think it's also part of monitoring and tracking. Keyword data centers is exactly that. So AI and robotics, I think, is what I said, is part of the plan. So while the Democrats may have lost some battles here, they haven't lost the war yet, I think, in their agenda. I think ultimately, and as we said earlier, with this map, it shows it was a success. For the audio listeners right now, this map shows that most of the country has gone blue. And that's why I said, look at Texas. Who would ever
No. That's the color, Eric, is migration.
No, I understand.
Red.
I understand, but I'm making the car. I know that. I'm totally making the correlation, but ultimately, figuratively speaking, with migration moves, it's gone blue because you look at look at right, because look at Arizona, for instance, Arizona and Nevada. Most of the people in Arizona and Nevada are transplants from California, so they brought these blue ideology, right? Same thing, right? You look at Florida, you got all these New Yorkers going to Florida, and so the blue has moved throughout the entire country. So I think that also with that, what we have to talk about is the economics have moved also. And a lot of big business that we never thought would leave New York City have left for Florida.
All right, look, we got to wrap this up, fellas. We got
it's 2.5 hours. But no, you're right. Listen, but ultimately, I think the point of this is ultimately, I think it was a success. And I think ultimately it was. And I think the plan is in effect.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about the PRDA tax. And again, I think this proves that what I'm saying is correct, because they're doubling down further. They want more people to leave. They want less tax money. They want people who own second homes to leave. We'll get into that, I guess, on Friday. And I think that's you got people paying large amount of taxes in New York City, people like myself, and now you're going to put us on the gun, tax us even more, put us on a publicly accessed database. You're going to do all these things to us, and yet we use zero of your city services. You spend $0. We take nothing. And yet you're still coming after us. And I think that just shows that they're doubling down on what they're doing, and they haven't lost anything. There's a plan in place, and the plan in place is to take over this entire country. And it started with the big left wing things. But let's not get into that debate let's just get on the super chats and get out of here, because we're way over. That took us.
Let's do it. Time's up.
It's told to you back when. He says, "Leave my Dominicans alone." Dímelo, hermano. So I don't know what that means. Come on, brother. Dímelo. What does dímelo mean?
No, dímelo. It's like, tell me, brother.
Dímelo. Tell me.
Dímelo.
Dímelo,
it's like
hermano.
It's like, speak to me, brother. It was, thank you. I told you so back when. I know I dated plenty of Hispanic chicks. I had a weakness for Latin women. Still do.
GS Ventures, shout out to CRT getting all those guns off the street. It's scary that they were definitely hundreds of guns out there. I mean, like, look, we'll agree on that. And I'm not saying that CRT didn't get guns. They did get a lot of guns. I'm not saying that. But like I said, that was a dangerous scenario. And what I've been saying since Adam started doing it, celebrating all of these guns arrests, that is not a sign of great police work. That is a sign that you have a population that's unafraid to carry guns on New York City, which is significantly different from the late 90s, early 2000s New York, where people were petrified to carry guns. And it's actually a failure on government. It's not a failure on rank and file members of the New York City Police Department. And then GS Ventures, he says, the How Many Stops Act discourages cops to be intrusive. Cops have to document a level 1 simple conversation, stop up to level 3. This is what prevent most cops from being intrusive. Look, there's a lot of paperwork, I think, involved in everything. And I think, as humans, we want to do less. You have days where you're lazy, and it's going to definitely deter things 100%. The guys that are out there, is it going to deter them? Maybe not so much, but you're going to get guys getting a lot of trouble because they're not going to do it. There's just an unbelievable amount of nonsensical paperwork that has to be done. And literally all of it is just to prove that you guys are racist against black and brown people. It's the only reason for that paperwork. It's not being documented anywhere else. They only care about the statistic of the gender and the ethnicity of the person. And that is it. They could give two shits about any other piece of information they get off that.
Spot on. That is absolutely right.
Joe Mango, let's do this one real quick too. $100. He says, John, Eric, did you see the videos on TikTok of the female officer asking the guy who walks up and has snacks with the officers for his number because she likes the smell of his cologne? So again, it's all over the place, Joe. There's tons of these videos out there. I think it's embarrassing. Obviously, could you do anything if a guy walks up to you and is filming you? No, you could joke with him. I'm not saying that. But to take the candy, to eat the candy, to drink, to cheers with him, all that stuff, I think, you know, it looks ridiculous, especially with all the stuff that's going on in New York City. You're not there to help somebody make content. If they make content because you're standing out there, you're a public figure, there's nothing you could do. But yeah, it's literally systemic. I got no issue with the guy. I have an issue with the cops. Same way cops used to be issued command disciplines for being on their cell phone with their foot on the wall. They should be getting command disciplines for showing up, doing content skits, whether it's dancing, whether it's doing whatever else. That's not your job. You're totally out of focus. You're totally not doing anything you're paid to do that day. No business doing that, in my opinion.
Joe Mango, thank you for the coffee donuts. I think I'm not saying that your job has to be so serious and so intense that you can't have any fun throughout your day of work. We always had a bunch of good laughs, but I think some of these videos are just silly. We have to go back to being professionals and actually be respected. And if we can't respect ourselves, how is the public going to respect us? And that's where I see the reflection. That's where I see the problem. So Joe Mango, shout out to you, brother. 2 hours and 35 minutes into it. Like, share, and subscribe. Our friends and listeners, thank you so much for the engagement as always. And if you're new to the channel, stick with us Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. We go live and we just speak the truth. And that's the reality. Let's separate politics from the facts and the truth. And I think this was a great conversation. We went down a rabbit hole, but it's quite interesting and it raised a lot of questions. And I think people will leave today just thinking about different things about this city and this country.
Yeah. Nolan says, any chance we could get Fauci to appear on the Finest Unfiltered? I don't know. I doubt it. I doubt he'll come on, bro. All right. I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing that I know. He ain't going to jail. So I'm not watching a second of that. I could care less. It's all a joke. You know, that's if he was going to be held accountable, he would have been held accountable 6 years ago when he lied to everybody. Again, why is Marlon still out of work? Why am I still out of work? Why is that? Why? If everything had failed, why is nobody held accountable for anything that's happening? None of the corruption, nothing that's happening here. So yeah, I don't know. Anybody knows Tony Fauci, hit him up. His cousin said he was a fraud. His cousin on Staten Island. He's got the restaurant across from Farrell High School on Amboy. I can't think of it, but good place. I've been there a bunch. Can't think
La Fontana.
La Fontana, great place. Tony Fauci owns it.
That was a good restaurant, man.
The real Tony Fauci, not the phony one. So, and he even said his cousin's a fraud.
Very good food. That place had good food, man. Good spot.
Yeah. Good spot. Yeah. If anybody's on Staten Island, go hit that spot up. It's good. More anything before we run out of here?
No. So it was quite a discussion today, but I think it all relates to the question of why, why they're doing certain behaviors and why now. But we thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate you spending your morning with us, and have a good day. And stay safe and stay alert if you're on patrol.
Yeah. Hunter, I'll get a job at your mother's house watching her door, right? So how about that?
God. Oh, damn. Now let's just.
How about that?
Seriously.
Let me know if your mother needs a handyman.
Hey, everyone, thank you.
I don't do any work anymore. Maybe you haven't heard.
Hey, listen, there's a lot of doormen who make pretty good money. That's not a bad job. Honestly, they got a good unity too.
No, I'm just going to be be exclusive to her though. Nobody else.
Hey, listen, if you need help, we can change shifts. I like mothers too.
Yeah.
Listen, with that being said, I just want to say thank you to everyone. And you get a chance. It's Wednesday night, of course. Tune into the Executive Perspective tonight, and we'll be back Friday for the roundtable. And I really mean it when I say thank you to the chat for the engagement. Thank you for everyone that's listening. If you're listening on the audios, we appreciate it. On your ride home and stuff. And if you have a chance, make a bet on Kalshi and use the code The Finest. And thank you, everyone. We love being here. So let's make things better.
Yep. Executive Perspective, 17:05, 5:05 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure you tune in with us. Mondani encourages Netanyahu protests. So Ron and Rob are going to be weighing in on that. So make sure you get back with us. All right, peoples. Finest Unfiltered. We'll be back at you.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?